back to the Harambe Heroes podcast. We have a very special podcast planned today where I'm going to take a bike pump and blow air into my own head. But before we get too far into all of that, very excited to introduce James back onto the podcast again. We had him when we were at the Atlantic City Open last weekend, and he's been gracious enough to come back on the podcast and talk about his experience there. If you want to, you can go ahead and introduce yourself, sir.
Yeah, I'm James West here. Oh wait, need to mute this. So yeah, here to talk about the experience we all had at the first major tournament of the year. Everyone is excited to get back into things. I think it was nice getting out again, and playing some really solid games.
Yeah, it's a super awesome experience. Have various opinions on the state of Atlantic City, but once we got into the hotel, it was a great experience to travel and meet all the people that we met there. Didn't have any expectations as to who was going to show up, and it was really cool to see all of the people outside of the Texas community that showed up, because there's a lot of strong players. A lot of people that have high visibility as far as podcasts and then tournaments prior to that. So that was very interesting to test our mettle, so to speak, against people outside of Texas. It went exactly how we thought it would. Texas is superior
we
in
got
every
to
way.
rub a lot of shoulders, yeah.
Yeah. And we got Brian here. He's picking his Manicore. You want to talk about how your weekend went?
Oh,
Brian?
I think it went great. The overall experience was a good time. Like you said, we got to rub shoulders with a lot of dudes, like some of the guys from like Re-Rolling Ones. Jack was there. We hung out with him for a while. I think we all got to know each other pretty decently. And now, like, I think I've talked to him like every day since then a little bit, not a whole lot. And then we got to meet a lot of the
just started networking.
Yeah, and we got to meet a lot of the guys from Frontline. Gavin and I actually ran into one of them in the airport, the guy who is a tournament organizer for Frontline. I don't know his exact position, so if I misquote him, then it's not because he did it. I'm messing it up. But
I think he's in like a logistics position where he organizes lots of the overhead as far as events and
it's not
the
like
people
Reese
in the
anything,
events.
right?
No, his name's Kicker. Yeah,
okay.
Kicker. So
yeah, we've talked a couple of times. Yeah.
To rub shoulders with another James O'Brien from the Nova Open. So he's looking forward to us being there. We're looking forward to him coming down to another Texas event.
Yeah, super solid guy. It was a lot of fun to talk to him. Very knowledgeable. He was playing Doc as well, and I think was one of your games, James. You can kind of get into that later. And I mean, I guess it's as good a segue as any if you want to go ahead and run through your games in whatever order you like to.
Sure.
I have some input on one of those.
Well, yeah, yeah, I wonder which one. Yeah, so I ended up going 4-1 in the events. Managed to claw my way to the top for 2 consecutive rounds. That was fun. Game 1 was against Blades of Corn. It was a Tyrants of Bloodlist with 4 blood letters in it. Kind of rough. The terrain really saved me on that one. But also we ran into, of course, one of the more contentious questions of what happens if a Venari model triggers the skulls. And the judge at the time ruled, oh yeah, the wounds carry over to the unit, but it's turns out the answer is no one knows, so that's fun. Still managed to take that one. Next game was against
always nice to have the TO come over and shrug his shoulders. It's very
that was funny because we were like, no man, like this is how this works, like by a raw reading, and then the TO comes over like a turn later and he's like, oh, this is how that works. And we're like, okay. Well, let's do some retroactive things, but yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that happens. Game 2 was against a Greyford Lodge, which is very interesting. I was mildly scared of it, but the mission was total conquest, and I just had the bodies. He couldn't. His hammer unit of 10 um, Hearthguard just got obliterated by Venari, who just charged in and just stabbed them with mortal wounds. The wardens, and he just couldn't make up the points gap after that. And then game 3 was against Jack. Dang, what was his last name? He's from the Rage of Sigmar podcast.
Oh.
Jacob.
Was it
Jacob?
Oh, Jake. Okay, Jacob Barry. Yeah, there we go. Sorry.
Barry.
If he's listening, I apologize.
There you go.
Really great guy, really exuberant guy. Tried to get me off my game by feeding me younglings the entire game. So he was playing a Calibron army, and I thought I was dead. He had me dead to rights on that game because I took the first turn and did my wounds to Marathi, tried to pick at a few things, get some my buffs off, and then he goes and in typical Doc fashion had his big unit of like 10, 15 snakes, I think, stalkers, and they come up and they shoot my shit. Marathi obliterates one cat hauler. Then he double turns. I'm like, oh, good, yeah, because protection, man. I cast protection of Haish, but I can't roll a single 5.
2 double turns against Doc.
It was
not many people could do that.
Shenanigans is I don't even know if it's shenanigans, but because it was shifting objectives and I have 8 battle line units, I was just like points.
Right.
And even though it came down to we barely had anything left on the board, but my Dawn Riders were just like, I have control of the sides, and I just racked up too many points for him to successfully do that. So that put me at the top on day 1, and then day 2 I play against James O'Brien there, and again he was playing Hagnar. He had a big unit of 20 snakes, Marathi, the works, and he gives me the first turn. I'm like, oh shit, okay. Well, I do my buffs, I shoot my stuff. We were playing on Knife to the Heart, which is people have opinions about that mission in that tournament, and
It sucks.
so I so he I obliterate his witch screen with some Dawn Rise and be like, here you go, have fun, deal with them. Well, I'll have another unit run around the side, and he goes and he murders them, especially because Total Eclipse did not go off. Then he goes and he murders.
As Doc does.
He murders like half my goddamn army with his shooting, and then he does it again because he gets a double turn. I'm just like, shit. Okay, well, I have to deal with this. Marathi takes her wounds where I can take them. It's always fun when she charges in. You throw a lantern at her face, and she takes her 3 wounds. And you say, "Yeah, kill my unit. I did my job." And so he's pushing in my face. I'm like, but I get the turn. I move these Dawn Riders up. Didn't get speed on them, unfortunately. And then I get the double turn. I'm like, oh shit, these Dawn Riders are like 19 inches away from his territory. He has nothing in that objective. he had tried to block me off with his shrine, and his shrine's sitting there, and it's like I have to move the 3 inches shenanigans around it, but I had enough room to do so. These guys are going. They'd already broken Shining Company so they could run. I'm like, all right, I gotta roll a 5. I roll 3. I'm like, shit. So did not quite take his objective. Was able to kill Marathi though, and then he goes. We have this big battle of his bow snakes versus my wardens. It gets to turn 4. He has top of the turn there. I guess it was the bottom of 3. Yeah, bottom of 3. He pushes into my objective with his snakes, but he was out. He was out of range to do the 2d6 run, and of course Murphy's dead, so he can't double shoot. So he has these like 10 bow snakes left, but only 3 of them get on the objective, and I have like 9 archers left or 8 archers left, and the Caterpillar, and he charges in with his iron scale, and the iron scale whiffs. So he does not take the objective from me. I'm just like, okay, on my turn. Bottom, I guess it ended up being bottom of 4, however it was. I guess he double turned again. I don't remember. And then I had two wardens that with a 6-inch run, because they had a Caterpillar just like running around next to them, would allow them to get on his objective. He only had 1 model on it, so I won the game there because my other models would retreat away from his iron scale, and I would can retain control of my objective. So I auto won there. But I was 1 point shy from the secondaries for a very important reason, because we move on into game 5, and wouldn't you know it, the prophecy came true. Houston was on the top table at the end of the tournament.
It's just as planned, yeah.
Yep. I said it the night beforehand. I'm just like, man, we're gonna have to fucking play each other, aren't we? And that's exactly what happened. So yeah, played the KO there, and one, the mission favored Gavin, and 2, I didn't have much of an army left after turn 1. So
Yeah, KO does what KO does, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, in the end there, as you see, I'm like 1 victory point shy of being able to have placed in something. But still, going 4-1 is better than I expected, so it is what it is.
No, it was a really good showing, and both of those daughters games, like I saw the mission that you picked up against both of those lists, and I was like, I don't know how James wins, and then you win both. I was like, oh, okay, well, he figured a way out. I don't know if I would have been able to figure that out with that army, because both of those games are like extremely tough matchups for
especially getting double turns, basically having four shooting rounds done against me in succession. I'm just cool.
Poor Doc. I don't know if you'll see that many Doc at these tournaments. Feels sad.
I don't think so.
Sad.
But we'll get into that later.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Do I get to gloat now? Yeah,
do you well, maybe we should have Brian go before
you can talk about mine before you do it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Whose head has gotten too big to wear his crown. I put it on earlier. You're just like, nah, this isn't gonna work. I was distracted, or I would have made the comments. Just like, wow, your head's gotten really big, hasn't it?
It won't fit.
Okay. All right, what you got, Brian?
Well, I played a game. I drew Knights of the Empty Throne, game 1. Went into. He gave me the turn. It was a Plague Touch, Knights of the Empty Throne, so it's 1 drop. Gave me the turn. I knew he had a 6-man unit of Vanguard, 10 Knights, 3 20-man units of Marauders, and then a teleport and some other things. A warrior, a Chaos Lord to let him pile in twice and that kind of thing. And I went into the Knights with the melee snakes and basically obliterated them. And then I went into the Vanguard with a buffed up Marathi, and I don't know, dice didn't go my way, I guess. Like, for lack of a better word, I don't want to get into the negativity of anything, but dice didn't go my way, and the Vanguard lived. And they had a 6-inch pile in, and he retreated around Marathi and got into the rest of my stuff, and I couldn't win a priority roll at any point. He also put the Whispers of Chaos spell, I think is which one it was, on my melee snakes, and there was 1 wound on, and he got 1 more wound through and killed 1 snake, so they couldn't move. And then I won the turn roll off, but I had 5 Vanguard in my whole army space. So I was like, it was either do I take the turn and fight these Vanguard off, but they're all buffed to the gills, or do I give him the turn and make the buffs drop off? He was out of range of them. Probably that would have been the play to let the buffs drop off and deal with unbuffed Vanguard, but them fighting first. And
It's
then be
so
able to
hard
move
with
my.
Doc to give the turn away because your whole army's on such a fragile platform, and your army really encourages you to do damage. Like it's very damage-driven army. That both
Mm-hmm.
you're trying to kill opponents off of objectives to play objectives, and you can't afford to absorb damage a lot of the time. Like most of the time, I think. Like if you're out of position and you have to give the turn to your opponent, you'll just die. Like Marathi won't
Yeah.
die, but everything else in your army will.
Yeah,
So
we were pretty even on points going into turn 5. Like, he had killed more of my stuff, but I take that back. I had killed most of his army, but he had a 5-man unit of Vanguard running around that were basically doing everything they could to stay away from Marathi. So even piling in inappropriately, but whatever.
yeah, it's
But
just it's tough to judge sometimes just because of how like awkward Vanguard are with extra pile-ins and a 6-inch pile-in. It's very hard to resolve that, and I can see how just that
mistakes were made. And
right. It just
going into
sure.
turn 5, though, I had a chance to win it, but I did. He had went first the previous round, and then I think he rolled a 6 for the turn priority, and then that allowed him to take those Vanguard up and get those melee snakes off of that back objective. If not, if I win the turn roll off, I come up and kill the Vanguard, and probably tie the game, and then I had both of my. It would have been weird. It would have been like a solid draw, like that, because I had both of my auxiliaries. He had both of his, and I guess it would have came down to kill points. But I killed a crap. I mean, who knows how that one would have gone? But I lost that one. I was pretty down. I was beat down on some of the things because I didn't think some things went right. But it's okay. I was pretty beat down, and then I went into a game against. Man, I would do him a disservice in trying to pronounce his name, but he is the coach of the Worlds team, the USA Worlds team. And it started off, it was pretty funny. He's like, yeah, man, I'm just here to have a good time. I brought gifts. I was like, you brought 45 Boingrot Bounders. Like, you're like, and 40 arrows to stream for them. So it's like, but we had a good one.
Somewhere in between, right? Like Gitz is a fun army, absolutely, but Boingart Bounders also are very good units for sure.
Yeah, so because he had the extra 3 movement on him, he had Scrag Rod, he had all the extra attacks on him with the Snufflers, and he had some real tools to win that game. With he had teleport in there, and I had turn choice, and I still kind of had that other game in my head, and I was screwing up, and I took the turn. I should have given him the turn because he wouldn't have been able to get to me. But I took the turn, and like halfway through the turn, I realized, wait, I'm going too far with all of my stuff. I'm just going to get 45 Boingrot Bounders slammed into it. So I backed off and just took 3 objectives instead of trying to go into his whole army. But I did go with Marathi because that's what she does. So I put Marathi into his arrows, into his little, what are they, the little shoot-a-squigs, and killed a ton of them. And then he got 1 unit of the Bounders because he had deployed really defensively. So he got 1 unit of the Bounders into my melee snakes and bow snakes. And he did some damage, but they were all huddled around a 5-up re-rolling Philnopanes. So, or at least the melee snakes had the re-roll, the bows, but he couldn't get into the bows. I stringed the bows with the melees. And so I think he killed like 3 maybe with a 15-man unit of Boingrots, and then I killed them off the board. And he went over and took an objective from me. And then Marathi went over there and wiped out everything he had over there. Because I did the stack. We were in the realm of metal, so she was +1 to hit. I used the CP to reroll 1s. I got Witch Brew on her. And I got Mind Racer on her. So she went over there and tore up 15 bounders and everything basically that was over there. And then the melee snakes came out and just grabbed an objective. He was tight in his deployment zone where I really couldn't get to anything that I needed to. So I went into the objective and killed the rest of the shooters. And he resurrected 20 of them later. But and then I just kind of sat on 3 of the 4 objectives and made him come to me and made it in a way where he couldn't get onto the objectives, because in that particular one, you got more points if you took an objective back from the opponent. And I think it was like 14 or something like that. And I won the roll off in 3, and we just called it. It was like, I think I had like 14 points, and we just called it. I mean, because I had killed all of his bounders at that point. He had real no way to come back. And then game 3, I had, I kind of went into it like laid back and really cocky, and was just like, I had it in my head like it was the same guy that James played game 1 with the 4 bloodthirsters, and long story short, we were 28 inches from each other, and he couldn't get to me. I just knew it. I was like, here, he's going to come mid-board with 4 bloodthirsters between double shooting bows, melee snakes, and Marathi. I'm going to kill all 4 of his bloodthirsters right now. Well, that didn't happen. He came screaming across the board with a rage bloodthirster. Somehow got them into my back line with a goofy pile-in that was approved, but a goofy pile-in, and let him put 16 mortal wounds into every unit in my army. So I did okay. I killed that bloodthirster, went out and killed 2 more in the middle of the board, and was starting to work my way towards the objectives, but he did well at summoning things to keep me tied down, so I couldn't get onto the objectives, and he won priority every turn. So I never had an opportunity where I could clear a screen and then get onto an objective. Mm-hmm. So it was just one more screen in front of me after the other. Because I was killing so much, he was always stacking up on blood tide points. So he just kept me screened out off the objectives well, and he just kind of ran away with points because everything that he had sitting on them were battle line. And all the stuff he was throwing in front of them were summoned screens, so didn't really hurt him. And eventually I got onto him, and then again it came down to a turn 5 roll-off, where on turn 5, if I win the roll-off, I take all the objectives, and then I had him tabled pretty much, and I wrap his shrine, and he can't summon anything anymore. All his heroes are dead, his shrine is wrapped, and he can't summon anything anymore, and I just sit there and stack points for the rest of the game. But he won the roll-off and then just scored enough points on that one where I couldn't come back. So I was pretty defeated day 1. I was just like it was just terrible. Like I had a bloodthirster go 32 inches across the board into my face, and it was like I knew, and I tried to have a conversation with him afterwards. Like we were 28 inches away from each other. You couldn't have done it. And he was like, "No, we measured it. And it's okay." I mean, that was my bad experience that day. And then day 2, I was not fucking around. Like I came in, I had my mojo back. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go for broke, and I'm gonna either blow them off the board or I'm gonna lose. But I'm not gonna do it sitting in my own deployment zone. I'm not gonna do that. So I got OBR turn 1 with 50 more tech guard and 2 crawlers, Ark and Catacross and he deployed his 10-man unit where the bows could get to him, where the bows could range him. So the bow shot killed that 10-man unit, and it was kind of a waste. I debated not doing it, and I also debated giving him the turn, but then I was like, I don't want to deal with Mortec and Catacross mid-board when we're fighting over an objective that is almost mid-board. So I was like, I'd rather just fight over there. So I went in, shot them, and then I brought the melee snakes around to the left where he had a 20 block, and I brought Marathi and the shrine over on the right. And the shrine was in range of the whole unit because I got Steed of Shadows off, so the Blood Rack shrine went screaming across the board, had 20 more tech in range, and I rolled 10 mortal wounds and killed 10 of them right off the bat. So, yeah, I got lucky. And between her and Marathi, they went in there and took out that 20 block, and the melee snakes tore the other one apart. So at the end of it, he had all of his Mortec dead and 6 wounds on one of the crawlers because I could range it with Marathi shooting. And he was like, I don't think I can win this game. I was like, nah, you probably can't, because he didn't get any wounds on Marathi turn 1. And his plan, he's like, I'm going to try to put Mortal Contract on the Shadow Queen. I was like, it's not really going to do any good with the Shadow Queen and 15 melee snakes staring at you with all my bow snakes behind them. Probably just going to kill everything you got right now. And so he played his turn out a little bit, and then we did a turn roll off, and I rolled a 6. So it was like, that's game. Because I would have just taken the objective by walking on it that turn and won the game. Or not necessarily won the game, because you can't win it until like turn 3, but he wouldn't have been able to clear me enough.
Yeah.
And then game 5, I was like, okay, here we go. Game 5. I had a choice between, well, not a choice, but right there in that same area where I was, it was Fangs of Sotek, like Feck. What was it? Idnet Deepkin, and I believe there was a Fire Slayers list. Oh, a Change Host list right in that area. Yeah, it was like I'm sitting here 2-2 on day 3, and I got Change Host, Fangs of Sotek, Feck, and Idnet Deepkin as my options. Like, have you ever asked for a Feck matchup? Like I've never dreamed in my life I would want to fight 2 or 3 Terrorgeist,
Right.
But I drew the Idnet Deepkin, and it was on focal points. Not a mission that favored me at all, but he was like 12 drops or something. And I was like, forget about it. Like, I can't slow roll. And he could flip the tides. So on turn 2, his whole army was fighting first. So I was like, I got to go for broke on this one. And went out and took every objective on turn 1. I killed his some stuff he had sitting on an objective. I think it was some thralls, the Marty thralls, and then he had his turtle, and then he had like a unit of Ishlan Guard and another unit of Ishlan Guard and a shark, and then right in the middle of them was a block just big enough for Marathi to fit, and I needed like a 10-inch charge to get there, and I rolled a 6 and a 1, but I got to re-roll the 1 into another 6. Bam, parked Marathi right in the middle of their stuff. Like, started chopping chunks out of that turtle shell. I think that's
deceptive because the base really isn't that big. Like, the Shadow Queen base can fit like in places where you didn't think it could get, just because it's only like 100 millimeter. I think like, it's not a big base. So
I think I did like 9 wounds to the turtle. Like, I beat the piss out of the turtle.
She'll do that.
Yeah. So, and not to mention, I got that. So I got every objective on turn 1. So on focal points, that's a lot of points, And then with her banging on the turtle's movement was reduced a little bit, so it couldn't really get away. But then everything in that little cluster had to retreat but couldn't charge. So it was just damage I took away from him on that turn. And then he did bring in his Morsar. He brought in 6 Morsar and 3 Morsar and charged into my melee snakes. And through an act of God, he only killed 5 or 6 of them. And so, and that was with his 6-man unit. Like, he only killed like 5 or 6.
Oh, wow.
So then I piled into the 3-man and killed it. And so the turn was over. He couldn't take the objective because I still had 9 snakes sitting there. And they had Witch Brew, so they were Battle Shock immune. And then we went into the turn roll off, and I rolled a 6, and he said, I think that's it. And I was like, well, I'm glad you said that, because I am just going to back up off of you, because it's turn 2 now, and he fights first. I backed off onto the objective, and then shot all the Morsar off with my bows. So he had no Morsar. And then the turtle, it didn't get that far once I killed all the Morsar with the bows. He kind of gave up. But Marathi, like we had already started rolling it, was going to chop down the turtle. He did get the prayer off to take fly away from her, but he didn't screen. He didn't have enough movement on the last little unit of Namarti that he had to keep her off the turtle. So she would have beat down the rest of the turtle. And we looked at it like probably he does still a decent amount of damage in the next turn because I'm so weak as far as my armor saves. But I had such a points lead that he could have taken those 2 points on the other side, maybe just on bodies. But he would not have been able to get the one in the middle and the other two on my side for a whole nother turn or two. So I would have just sat there stacking up points on him. I knew against Deepkin, I wasn't playing for the long game. Like it was go get as many points as I can, as fast as I can. And it came out pretty good. I mean, I ended 3-2. And I felt a lot better the next day. Day one crushed me. I felt like that.
It's tough to fly halfway across the country then with expectations and lose your first and your third game and be like, well, shit, like, am I the player I think I am? Like, I'm sure that's something that went through, like that you had to deal with.
I mean, that happens. Is this your first out of state tournament, Brian?
Yes.
Okay.
First one out of state.
No. I mean that. Yeah. I mean, I felt that where you're just, like you're doing really well in state. You're doing good at these events and stuff. You go out there and either the luck you just don't get the luck that you need to, or in certain cases other things in those games, and you feel like okay.
I think game 2 really killed me. Our game 3 really killed me the most is because it's like I knew, like mathematically, you can't get to me, and then he did, and I was just like, what do you do now when a bloodthirster goes 32 inches across the board? Like, and then I was like, well, what are you gonna do? Like, but I was beat down because I was like, you can't beat me. In my head, I was like, he can't beat me on this mission. I'm gonna kill all of his heroes on turn 1. His summoning's gonna go away. And then I had to. Then what was left was 2 units of flesh hounds, 1 10-man unit of bloodletters, and 1 10-man unit of reavers. Like I needed about 34 seconds to kill all of that. I was like, this is gonna be over quick, no problem. I'll go 2-1 day 1. Been here before,
Oh, I've definitely had those games where you sit there and you're just like, how the fuck can I lose to this? And you're just like, how the fuck am I losing to this?
And it just kept getting worse. Like. I kept thinking to myself, well, I'm gonna catch up. I'm gonna catch up. And then he kept spiking mortal wounds with those rage thirsters.
Yeah.
And my 15-man unit of melee snakes killed all of them. And then he summoned another one in, and he came in and spiked 20 mortal wounds into it, and then 12 damage. And I was like, well, what am I gonna do now?
I vividly remember. I think the first game I ever played against James was at in Austin, right? Whatever they're calling that. And I was 3-0, feeling myself after day 1. And the first game, game 4, and I've got Feck back when Feck was Feck, and it was Duality of Death, game 4. And I'm like, okay. And we had a whole night to think about it. And I was like formulated this big, extravagant game plan. And like, yeah, I feel like I've got this game. And I take first turn. Go into Archeon with the Terrorgeist, get everything I need to on the setup, and then the Terrorgeist doesn't do any damage to Archeon. James rolls very well on his Feel No Pains.
He does enough, but not enough.
And then he Slayer Kings my. I think it was Slayer Kings or killed him with Varangard. I can't remember.
Varangard, yeah, because I put up a unit there, so I'm like, well, he's gonna charge me, and I guess I can't avoid it, so I just gotta live. And the Archeon did some damage, but that unit of Varangard did their double pile, and it just fucking brutalized it.
Yep.
Yeah,
and it's like Terrorgeist is dead, and I didn't kill Archeon, and then you double turned me. I'm like, I think I'm gonna lose. And you just have those games like where just everything goes bad.
Well, even in that last game, that game 3 on day 1, I was like. I was still in it. It wasn't over. And then on that, I could not get a priority roll. Everybody always pretends like my dice never go bad. Well, it didn't. It wasn't even my dice. It was just like he kept going first.
It all comes
kept rolling 6s.
Dice always come around. They just sometimes you roll poorly on stuff that doesn't matter, and sometimes you roll well on stuff that doesn't matter, or vice versa. That's just how dice are. Like you're rolling good and bad dice throughout the game. No one rolls just bad through the whole game. It's just sometimes it falls the way to where like you roll bad on such significant rolls that it feels like you roll bad the whole game. That's what happens a lot of the time, I think. And
Yeah, it was fun. I mean, it was fun. It was a great experience. We got to meet some really cool people.
Agreed.
And even the guys that I met that I lost to that I didn't really have a great game experience against, like they're not bad guys. They just also wanted to win, you know. I get it's whatever. I mean, the guy that I lost to game one is the guy that won the. I guess somehow got best overall, even though Gavin had best victory points.
Well, it had there was some real paint consideration in the tournament, which I'm perfectly fine with. Like I'm not angry about that in any capacity. Like, and his army's painted very well. So
the way the tournament packet broke down was 120 points to overall. This is for overall considerations. Was your battle points. 25 points was based on sportsmanship votes, and then 25 points was so they had a 40-point rubric that you could get for painting, and you can get it up to 25 was the maximum you get added onto your overall score, unless you were in the contention for the top painted armies, in which case you get plus 5 points to that. And both of those armies were in the top painted armies, so that also added onto that. And it was a very small contention between those points, but it just kind of added up to be enough to leapfrog on that.
And I figured like honestly, like had I won either one of those two games that I lost, I probably would have lost another one anyway, because Gavin and I's point, like even if I won both of those games, Gavin and I's points were so close throughout that tournament that had I got the wins, he probably would have drew me at some point and blown my army off the table, unless we drew Arcane Power, and we now know that didn't happen. So
probably for if you're going to look at it objectively, I think that no Arcane Power is probably a good call for that tournament, because there was so much stuff there.
You make a lot of assumptions that they were actually making that decision, and it wasn't just
they
roll.
They were rolling it every battle round. They rolled to see what mission they got, which that's a casino. I can dig it. But Martin Orlando threw a great event. That was the head tournament organizer. He had a lot of people helping. I think his parents were helping him, and they were very nice.
Are people from actually GW that are tied into GW.
Those are GW
from what
people?
I understood. Yeah, that's what they said.
No, I thought that couple
the older
was
couple was his parents, I think, right?
Oh, was it?
I thought they were. Gosh, I know there was a group there that was the like the got that a podcast or something. They're like wedding.
Oh,
yeah. What was their
GW, like Partners at War?
Yeah, Partners at War. That was it.
One.
That was the Ideth Deepkin guy I caught on game 5. I caught him.
No, but it was a very nice couple. They're older, probably. They're an older couple there helping with the tournament organization. I'm not 100% sure on their names, but they were nothing but nice to everyone who had any questions or needed any help.
They were so nice. Yeah, that's true.
It's super awesome. Like the organization of the tournament, with everything considered, like as far as the layoff from COVID and the restrictions that had been in place up until a few weeks ago. I think they ran a stellar event, and I don't have any complaints really. Not real ones. Maybe some suggestions that in here and there, but it was a great event in my opinion.
Those Partners of War guys that y'all were talking about, actually, he got into it, and then he got his wife into it, and she has since fully painted like 20 armies. They have a podcast as well. If you guys want to go check it out, it's called Partners of War. Great
much
player.
More successful than we are. So
there were a lot of people showing their podcasts, but there are certain gorillas who refuse to do so.
I mean, I
Mm,
figured we were like 34th in line of people talking about their podcast. So I was like, maybe it ain't worth it. Let's get to the awards so we can go chill. I was tired, and but that Partners of War guy, he was fantastic player. But at the start of the game, I was like, "So you're familiar with Doc?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, my wife's here with Doc, and she plays it. We practice this almost exact list all the time." And I was like, "Well, how'd it go for her?" She's like, well, it's really one sided, and she hates playing against it. She thinks that army can't beat this army." And I was like, "Oh, well,
Oh,
let's see how this goes. Like, let's see if I can change her mind." And then I went and told her afterwards. I was like, "I avenged your Doc. I took him out." So
yeah.
mm.
Cool. So that
My
was
turn.
the
Do I get
that's
to
right.
talk about my
forgot.
games?
I forgot. You're
oh yeah,
this will
yeah,
be
I
yeah.
didn't
fast.
talk about. I win. I won everything, and it was easy. That's always easy.
Yeah.
But no, Caradron are um, even more broken than I probably anticipated. Is a fair statement. The Caradron are too strong. After playing the 5 games of the tournament, full disclosure, I think in 5 games of the tournament combined, I played through 8 battle rounds, and you shouldn't be able to progress through a 5-round tournament and have that be your path to victory. Um, every single one of my games, except for the knife to the heart game, after turn 1, was in a state to where the turn roll off decided the conclusion of the game. And I think that an army's probably doing too much damage just across the board through various modes. Is just doing too much damage, and I think it will be scaled back in 3.0. But currently, there's too many
Not.
ways to just guarantee its efficiency, like with through hit rerolls and wound rerolls and other force multipliers. I was able to consistently put out 60 plus wounds in one turn without very much interaction from my opponent, which we can kind of get into. My first game was against Doc on what was the first mission? Shifting objectives, or not shifting objectives?
Not,
Blade's Edge,
Border War.
right?
yeah, it was a Blade's Edge.
Oh yeah, Blaze Edge. Yeah.
And Blade's Edge, and so like I pulled the Darzakane Hagnar first game, which if I was gonna pull Hagnar, that was one of the missions I wanted to pull them on. He was actually a 1-drop, which was really surprising to me. Most Hagnar is at best a 3-drop, but he had decided to play entirely within Viperic Guard, and which I don't think is necessarily the correct call. We kind of had some discussion after the game about it. He was foregoing a lot of the force multipliers that I think you need to make Hagnar work to be a 1-drop. And if he was going to play that 1-drop, I think it would have been better suited for Calibron. But he had his points too, which was the list was kind of designed to engage turn 1 because it had Cogs and 20 Blood Sisters with the ability to make them run and charge, which is a fair point. It's very fast and it's very hard if he's able to engage and get everything that he needs to. But with the way I deployed in the corners and outside of his threat range. And he made me go first, which in hindsight with the way he was deployed, I think was probably the wrong call because he had deployed to go first because he had to deploy his whole army before he saw what I was going to do. And when he put down his army in the way he did, he put his Blood Sisters out in front, designed to run and charge and engage turn 1, and I just put my boats in the corners. So he did outside of his threat ranges. So he wouldn't be able to really get much damage. He only had 10 bow snakes. So he wasn't going to double shoot, and at best he was going to run and charge, or run 2d6 and shoot, maybe get half the unit in range of one of the boats. And this just wasn't going to do enough turn 1, so he made me go first. And with the way he was deployed, all of my guns were within range of what they needed to be. With KO, a lot of the time you're trying to keep the things in your army that matter 12 inches away from the fly high threat range, because most of their damage is tied to those 12-inch guns. But he was on the line and exposed with his 20 snakes to that, which allowed, I think the Ironclad killed 17 snakes by itself when it went up and shot,
Well,
which is
we've seen that matchup. We knew what it did. You
yeah,
have to screen out those 12-inch guns.
yeah, it's
Mhm.
super substantial damage. And at the
course.
end of the first turn, he had his Marathi forms with, or at the end of the first battle round, he had taken 3 wounds on his own turn from charging a boat, and so he had Marathi on 6 wounds and 4 bow snakes left, and I won the turn roll off, and we called it there. So that's kind of how the game progressed. We had a good discussion afterwards about, you know, what could have been done differently, and he's a super awesome guy. It was his first tournament that he had traveled to play to. He played a lot of locals, but had decided that he wanted to play in GT, and had the misfortune of pulling a Caratron Overlords matchup as his first GT experience. Hopefully, it didn't make it too painful for him, but KO is KO.
I
But that was the first game.
yeah,
Go ahead.
KO is
Pretty good.
Barack Ziflin is different from the rest of KO for a very important reason.
Oh
I
yeah,
don't-
you left that part out. What did you drop in the middle of his army?
Oh yeah, Warp Lightning Vortex, Escape and Spell. Yeah, they need that too. You know, they
Yeah.
need to do that with no counterplay, along
just-
with a bunch of other things.
That's a lot of it. You know, with KO, I play KO, and there you can mitigate some of it. You can do that. You cannot mitigate a Warp Lightning Vortex. You can't.
Yeah, agreed. And like when we get to our game, we can kind of like go through it even more, but because I've got ideas on like echoing what you just said, and that it's impossible to really screen. But my second game was against what was my second game? It was against Evan Morris, and he was playing Fangs at Sotek. Very interesting list, very competitive list. You've seen Fangs of Sotek, Seraphon was Skink Heavy, and Croak has been kind of what everyone's agreed upon as the most competitive form of Seraphon, I think. You've seen it all over TTS. You've seen it at a lot of these events that are doing games in person. You've seen that list kind of make the rounds as being very successful, very consistent. I think we're playing on, what is the one with the heroes? The 4 objectives. What was that called?
That was the Total Conquest.
Total Conquest, right? That was mission 2. And on Total Conquest, I was unsure on really how, because in this game I actually got to decide turn order, which was a little different from the first turn. So I had a little bit of difficulty deploying, because he deployed very defensively. He had screened his deployment zone, but incompletely. And I'll get into that later. But he had screened his deployment zone pretty well, and packed the rest of his army into the corner of the board. Like his entire army was jammed into the corner of the board. So he was set up in a way that allowed me to do a lot of damage turn 1, but that mission dissuades you from going first a lot of the time because it has a recapture mechanic where you will bleed points if you take a bunch of objectives and then give them back to your opponent, because you get an extra point for retaking objectives. So even if I had done a lot of damage but I didn't do enough damage, he could have played the mission really hard and just gotten back in the game that way, because one of the drawbacks to KO is that you just don't have a lot of bodies on the board. So even with the chunk that I shot off of his army, I think he had a little bit more play than he thought he did. But turn 1 he deploys that way, but he leaves a pocket in the bottom of his deployment zone for me to get close enough to drop Vortex into that lump of his army in the corner. So his Warp Lightning Vortex hit his entire army through 2 rotations. I rolled pretty well, killed a lot of his smaller heroes, and did substantial damage to a lot of his units. And then because he was pocketed in that way, and the way he set Croak in, he had screened with the Source Guard on Croak, but through my shooting phase and the Warp Lightning Vortex rotations, he had to give up the Source Guard. So the Source Guard died during shooting and the Warp Lightning Vortex rotations. And my list has an Engine Master with the dirigible suit, which was hitching onto the ironclad. So when the Source Guard went away, Croak was exposed to the Engine Master flying in and getting into combat with Croak, and I had picked him as my Grudge Bearer target, so it doubled all the damage against Croak, and I was able to kill Croak turn 1. I had to take Warp Lightning Vortex on the dirigible suit to do it, but it didn't matter. It was a fair trade, right? You take that every day of the week. If you can get Croak off the board turn 1 in a Seraphon army, you do it every single time, is my opinion. But that's kind of how the first turn went. I did a lot of damage, killed a lot of things, and he kind of talked himself into resolving the game after one battle round. If he had some rolls go his way, I think he could have had some play, but I wasn't going to talk him through a win. I'm a nice guy, but I'm not such a nice guy. I'm going to tell you how to beat me at a GT. So we go to game 3. I played against Michael Mullis, and he had Sons of Behemoth. We kind of get into later what I think Sons of Behemoth are going to become in 3.0, but what they are in 2.0 is that they're kind of a DPS check. And Caradron does some of the most substantial amount of damage in the game. He just didn't have the ability to screen or really play effectively against KO. And that's how that 2.0 matchup goes, is KO just kills giants.
Yeah, it's like, do you have enough damage in your army to kill giants? And if you do, then you beat them. Yeah.
Exactly. So, and that's how the game went. It was on shifting objectives, which exacerbated the matchup because I have so much battle line in my army that I was able to score 7 points turn 1, kill a lot of his army and damage the rest of it, and then he wasn't able to retake. He retook the center, but I still had the outside edges of the board, and then I got the turn and we resolved it there because I think he might have been tabled. If he wasn't tabled, he had like maybe 3 or 4 wounds left on one model.
And that was the guy who was playing giants, who was also a giant himself, right?
Yeah, he was the medium giant. He's like 6'5". There was a dude there that was like 6'10" that was playing giants, like actual giant, just playing giants. And they played each other later in the tournament. Spoiler alert. That was a pretty fun game to watch. The big one called the 6'5" guy a little one, and that was funny.
Yeah.
That a 6'5" guy was being big brothered by somebody. It's probably the first time it's happened in his life. But super nice guy, really well painted army. And I ditto that for all of my opponents. Everybody there was very fun to interact with, even if the game wasn't fun. And I know that KO can produce that kind of game for sure. But the interactions I had with all the people there was very fun, and super nice guys with really well painted armies. That was the end of day 1, and I was feeling really good about how those games resolved because I had played 3 battle rounds in 3 games.
I hope I didn't bring y'all down too much. I was really trying not to bring y'all down because you two were doing so well, and I was legitimately stoked for my boys to be smashing fucking face.
No, man, it was a fun tournament, like it really was, and
we had good pizza that night.
Yeah, for sure. That was a good call. What was that place called in the Harris?
I don't know, man. But it was sitting right next to Guy Fieri's sandwich shop.
Oh, yeah, the sandwich shop.
Yeah, we went to Flavortown the next day, so.
Yeah, those were good too.
Yeah, no, I mean it. You know, I know those feels though. You always want to do well, but you know, there's times it's also a die game at times, but yeah. And there are, you know, opinions and such about the fine tuning of the events, and we'll see how that differs from the Dallas GT, since they're kind of run by different standards, and it's also they're gonna have to hastily re-rack their packet because it's going to be for 3.0.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, I
that was
100%
interesting
got
call for
confirmation.
sure.
Kicker
Yeah.
told me like 100% confirmed. It's 3.0. Start getting your 3.0 shit together. I mean,
Gonna be
as if
nice.
anybody didn't know already. Like,
Yeah, I'm not done talking about my games, guys.
I know. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
okay. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah,
We
I've
got
got
off track
more
there.
one-turn games to talk about.
We only have one more
But
one-turn game to talk about.
yeah, yes, you're right. Um, but game 4 is actually against another guy who spent some time in the Marine Corps. We actually had a really good sidebar conversation about um, just a lot of that shit. I don't know if I've ever said that on the podcast. I spent some time in the Marines. Don't talk about it a lot because it just doesn't come up. But this guy had also spent time there and had a kind of a similar experience to me. So we had a nice, like a good conversation about that. Drank some beer. That was fun. And but he had Blog's Mega Mob on Knife to the Heart against KO, which is a similar interaction that Giants have to against KO, where they have to walk at KO across the board. He didn't have a teleport on his hag. I don't remember what spell he had instead, but he didn't have any mobility, and that's kind of how the game went. Is that I slowly shot him to death as he walked. He actually played the mission as well as he could, I think. Um, he pushed very hard to the center and with the intention of backfilling his objectives with the units that he brought back to life, which is a really solid strategy. He just didn't get the turn rolls that he needed when they got to that point in the game. But he did make me. He forced me to retreat and play defensively until I had the game at a point where I could go into his objective or into his deployment zone and take his objective, which was like the end of turn 4. So it wasn't like a tight game, but it was very well played, if that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense. But
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
there's a better way to describe that. But that's kind of how that game went. Super solid guy. Name was Brian Brown. Had flown in from California, so he flew farther than we did.
Mm-hmm.
And
We
in
got their
general,
number.
there's a
They're probably
lot of really
coming to
good
Texas.
travel. Yeah, he was looking to go to San Antonio, so maybe we'll see him there.
Nice.
Another solid guy. And then we had the Houston showdown for Game 5. KO shoots Lumineth off the board.
Pretty
That's
much.
kind of
Yeah.
how it went. Yeah.
Yeah. With all the models I have, and that particular mission, it's very difficult to deploy in a way. There's very little way to mitigate Warp Lightning Vortex from just annihilating my army beyond him rolling bad.
Yeah.
Just
I
just
rolled,
the
I
way
rolled very
it's
well.
the way it is deployed, where it goes, I couldn't dispel it. He was able to put it down, and that was the entire half of the army, which was like, I can ignore this now and then just go and focus on the other half. So
Yeah. And it just got the dice rolls exacerbated what was already kind of a plus matchup for just the armies against each other. And we play each other all the time. Like all the time. So I think that there's a lot of room for misplay if the KO isn't played properly, but like I played against that army so many times. I know what it does and know how to attack it, and that's really half the battle against that Lumineth. I think is just knowing how to attack it and the right sequence. And because if you don't, you can really get yourself tangled up. And I
yeah,
think that's what happened in a lot of your games without seeing how they actually resolved.
with
And
yeah, a lot of times people look at that army, especially with those Daughters of Cain. They look at it and they say, okay, the threat here is the 40
It's the
Sentinels.
shooters. Yeah.
And to a degree, that is true. That's what's going to kill your heroes. But the 20 Wardens that run at you with Power of Haish, they are the true threat.
Oh yeah.
yeah, agreed.
But they
And
can
then
only
if you
do so
attack it
much.
the wrong way and don't kill it, you pass battle shock off. You do damage in the enemy's charge phase. There's so many little quirks to the Army that can really get you in trouble if you don't know what you're doing.
Mhm.
And without like I said, without seeing those games, it has to be what it is, because there's so many matchups you had over the weekend where I was like, I'm not sure how James is going to win. And he wound up winning, and
At least we
with,
got him ready for the Doc matchup. He had to play both of us in the last.
So I mean, I know I won the the knife to the heart one because I just had a superior number of models and mobility. So I just had so much stuff there, and conveniently a unit of wardens I had nowhere to deploy, so I threw them in the corner, and they were just able to slowly make their way up and then charge a whole bunch of snakes, and then I was able to throw him off with his shrine by taking Dawn Riders on the side. And those Dawn Riders, I mean, they win games. And in fact, that they also won the game before that, because turn one, I just say, okay, throw them their 14 inches onto the side objectives, and that's their battle line. So that's 2 points. And then cast Speed of Haisha on a 20 man unit. They walk up onto the middle objective. That's 3 points. And he did not have the forces to split to the side objectives. And I'm just racking up points. And that's how I won game 4, and I'm sorry, game 3 and game 4. Yeah, was I was dead to rights on that one. Ooh, look at your Manticore. But it was just able to just go Neum and run onto the objective and win that way. Because otherwise, I don't think I could have won, because he took out half my army in in a double turn. So.
Well, you guys played a great damn event. Like, everyone looks at your two armies and it's like, oh, it's Lumineth and it's KO. Like, you guys, like, James ran a damn gauntlet to get there. Like,
all I know is I got the James O'Brien's opinion, where he was just stunned. He's like, "How did this happen?" I'm like, "I don't know." Very cool, guys. So I look forward to seeing him again at a Texas event and Nova next year. It's not.
Well, all the Worlds guys were thinking it was Jacob. Like, I remember when I was talking to the coach, he's like, "It's Jacob's. This is Jacob's tournament to win," with that list that he brought. And I was like, "Oh well, we'll see." My boys got some heat too.
Just knocking these people out, just like elf on elf action.
I may not be representing Houston very hard right now, but my boys are, and they are no joke. Like, I've never, even the games that I lost, I didn't feel pushed like I do when I play YouTube. Some dice rolls didn't go my way. Like, I don't feel like I've lost to you guys and just been like, God, I was outplayed, and I never felt that way. In that, like, who expects a bloodthirster to go 32 inches across the board and hand you 60 mortal wounds on turn one? You know?
Yeah, no one who can measure things.
But you guys played a fucking fantastic tournament. I am pumped for you guys, and I'm looking forward to maybe doing a little better when we go to Dallas next month. So
there you go.
Even though I'm not building a list that I think will do better, so we'll see.
I don't know if anyone's gonna really know. I think people are gonna have ideas of what's good, but I don't think anyone.
Oh yeah,
nothing can be
I think it's gonna be a lot of trial and error there. You got once the GHB is out, and I pray to God FAQs are out the day of, to get them in line for third edition. Then that's when the race is on. You have 3 weeks to get your army ready for this event. At least I sat there and I figured out, okay, I know how to keep to my theme, and I can get under points. Which I guess. Well, first off, before we segue into this, Gavin, do you have the thing you want to show people?
Do you have it? You got the trophy?
Did you get it in?
Yeah. Looks like. You see
it too much, but
there you go. The best.
Yeah, it's sort of clear.
Yeah, well, it's a freaking clear glass.
Yeah,
it says I'm the fucking best. That's what it says.
Okay,
I'm the fucking best, and it was easy. That's all I have to say.
Okay, well, that was the Atlantic City Open. Uh,
Yeah.
y'all wanted
But
to
no, it was
talk.
a fun game. I
Yeah,
got
yeah.
like as lucky as you could with matchups and had a really strong army and everything fell into place. I'm sure that anyone's ever that went 5-0 will tell you that. I know I've gone 4-1 enough to know
Hmm.
that you have to have everything fall in place. And I finally had it happen for me and it
Oh
felt
yeah,
good. So,
yeah. Oh yeah. There are definitely plenty of events where you're sitting there just like, don't match me against this army. Don't match me against this army. Don't match me against this army. And then you're like,
don't get
okay,
me.
gotta do it. You
Yeah.
make your way.
Well, it was like they had this was like the elephant in the room for this tournament was Arcane Power Doc, and like would it happen, and then what armies are going to get taken out because they have to play against Doc on Arcane Power
And there were like
because
10 Doc armies there.
right, and they were rolling a dice. They didn't. It was it was just every round they're rolling a dice, and you're like, hopefully it's not this round, and it just never came up. So. I
I was
was
paying
very
for it on
fortunate.
game 5. I was like, I
Very
really
fortunate
could
in that
use
regard.
arcane power here to make sure I'd go positive in this event. And then I didn't get it, but I bum rushed Deepkin. It was go time. Like, if we're gonna lose on your side of the table.
All right. So I see Evans pulled up some points here.
What's this?
I haven't looked over everything. There is actually. Oh, where is it?
I haven't either, but I have glanced. And I
Okay.
think Cities is primed to be a good army now.
Agreed. I think
Here
that
is a. I'm gonna send this to Evan if he wants to post it. Something that Matt Robish sent me that somebody did kind of a quick breakdown. It doesn't do like everything, but it's like their point changes over compared to 2.0, and the percentage changes in their points and where that kind of puts them on the average. And you can see who kind of the winners and the losers are on that.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, but Cities of Sigmar. I mean, like, and now you don't have any of that stuff. Yeah.
No
Oh,
battalions,
yeah.
limited artifacts, limited command traits.
Well, my
And
thing is the keywords that I hate because I've been
no.
messing with that since it dropped, trying to make it work.
Yeah.
Just
I think Living City's got some real play at the high end of competitive Age of Sigmar because a lot of what their problems in Living City were was tied to their command point generation, which has been fixed in 3.0. You're going to generate plenty enough CP to make Living City work now, and I think they have so many different model ranges to pull from Stormcast, Somaneth, and just regular cities, that you're going to be able to find a combination of models in some aspect that make Living Cities work well enough to be a top table army, I think. I think
ooh, I like this breakdown.
everyone has kind of agreed that Sons of Behemoth's going to be very strong, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well,
And that's for
look on here.
multiple reasons.
Yeah, the big guys are battle line now, and
Yeah.
Their battle line. They have a lot more command abilities open to them. They benefit very much, especially the Gatebreakers, from the +1 to hit command ability.
Yep.
They in this battle pack, almost all of the battle tactics resolve around monsters. Yes, your opponent can gain one extra battle point for per battle round, or victory point for battle round for killing a monster, but you can gain so many more with battle tactics by just be like, yeah, I have 2 monsters in your opponent's thing. You're like, oh shit, my whole army's monsters. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's on the stream here. Someone did a little percentage breakdown of kind of all the points changes in these armies. You can see the ones that had very minimal changes and the ones that had massive changes.
Yeah, and what jumps out to me off of this list right away is Soul
Oh,
Blight.
look at Doc right at the
Right.
bottom.
Soul
Well,
Blight with no points changes. I think it's
I'm
pointed very aggressively. Let me get my 2 cents in.
okay.
You can
Okay.
talk. Sorry. Um,
No, no,
I think that Soul Blight is going to echo the same problems that
Mhm.
Skaven and Seraphon have had in the past, where there's nothing that really jumps out to you as far as a force multiplier that is like head and shoulders above everyone else's, but they have strong force multipliers, and they have the ability to have much more army than other armies do, which turns into a hyper efficient monster that grinds people out. And that's kind of what Skaven and Seraphon have been in the past, and I think Soul Blight's going to be in that same mold in 3.0. Okay, I'm finished.
No, no, that's fine. No, I was just saying when it came to points, I mean, they were clearly their points were made thinking of 3.0, and it would have been very. I say it would have been very odd to change their points so quickly, but if we look at the bottom of the list, that's.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah.
But
You think we're going to
maybe
send 11 dock lists again at this
No.
LSGT? What do you think?
I don't think. Maybe
Like,
we
I don't
maybe
own
you
the
know
models.
this can make it easy that we can go just from top to bottom. Maybe just talk about what we think about the changes in each army.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So we
could
talked
hit
about the
Soul
Brave
Blight and
Lords,
Sons,
yeah.
right?
Yep. Bone Reapers.
They look good. Like
Mhm.
Catacross came down a lot.
Mhm.
The already common like Catacross Arkan combo is still very viable. I like that. I wasn't gonna
They
play
changed
Catacross.
how the harvesters work, didn't they? Somehow, I saw
Um,
someone talking about how
Not really.
that interaction's been
It's
changed.
just generally on how models are put back on the board and how wounds are allocated. So you have to like the way that most people generally play it. They roll that 4 up like it's a feel no pain. Well, you can't do that anymore. You actually have to remove the model
Mm.
from the unit and then roll the 4 up and then put it back on the board within an inch of a model that was already on the board. So none of those so you have to be very particular on your placement for coherency and your placement for resurrecting models.
Mm.
So that's where the harvester got kind of messed with. It's going to be because you have to remove those models first,
Okay.
and then they have to be put back on the board next to something that didn't die. That's not how anyone has played it up to this point.
All right.
Like I said, we've all seen it. They just roll that 4 up like a feel no pain, and
Because it is supposed to trigger each time the wound gets through, and you're supposed to do each one individually. It's just we speed play it because that's just easier.
well,
Uh,
for speed play purposes, I think you can still do it, but then you have to roll them like one at a time.
well, I
To
think
bring them back on.
I'd have to reread that rule, but yeah, you're right. I think if I remember that rule correctly, it's like you resolve all the attacks and then you return slain models. So if you have like 6 models in range of the harvester and 7 wounds go through,
You
then
don't have anything.
yeah, one model is going to die and it is not coming back. So, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And
and
you can't.
I think that's really nice.
Well, the good thing for them is they are on 25 mils, so you
Mhm.
can still wrap them all the way around the harvester
Mhm.
if you want to. So, and I'm painting up some more tech. You guys have seen a lot of it. Like I was planning on some Steliarch Lords and Arkin, but I don't think that's going to be viable anymore with 15 with a big block of 15 Death Riders because it's going to be tough to get them in there, and you really needed them to explode when they go in, and you can't really do them that way anymore. So I think I'm going to tweak it with the list a little bit, but I do think I'm going to have Catacross and Arkin together. It's a brutal combo between the two of them, just putting basically 6 wounds back in 3 different units every turn or whatever it is
Mhm.
exactly.
Yeah.
So,
There's Bone Reapers. Not much change. It's too bad they can't use any of the fun new command abilities, but
yeah, I thought that was a little weird considering the guy on the community page said something about OBR is about to be very happy. I think maybe that was just because they weren't getting a massive points increase.
Yeah.
Maybe that was the case, but still,
Well,
some of the major things that were in dire need of points changes didn't get them. Like these guys that you never see on the board that are massively overcosted got more points put on them. They went up points. Like you never even see them on the board, and they still went up. It was like
hmm
Harbingers, I think, stayed right the same, or maybe went up by 10. I think.
I don't know.
I don't know. It's. I think OBR is going to be in a good place, but I don't think it's for any other reason other than their points didn't go up tremendously. So their list don't change that much. They were already fairly elite in some builds, and then just hordy in
hmm
other. But I don't want to play horde anything ever. So
Well, did you have anything to add to that, Gavin?
And I think OBR kind of stays the same, right?
hmm
I think the board being shortened helps them a little bit because one of their main weaknesses is mobility, and trying to cover the whole board. They've kind of struggled in that, and I haven't looked at the mission pack yet, so I need to evaluate how they would play missions. But in my head, they have a lot of behemoths, so they'll be okay on those missions.
hmm
And they are, if there's any kind of mission that encourages you to go to the center and grind, OBR is good at that.
hmm
So I think that they'll be about where they are, or where they were in 2.0. I think that that's probably where they're going to wind up in 3.0.
Um,
So
yeah.
yeah, I think with their ability to take your command points away, now that these command abilities are so powerful,
hmm
like
mm,
just being able to steal CP is pretty good. Even though we can't use them, like it'd be funny to keep
hmm
track of how many CP that you took away from your opponent over a 5 or 6 game event. You know.
right.
Okay, Brian. Do you want to lead off with your favorite points
Oh,
change?
oh yeah! Everybody has been dancing on Archeon's grave. Y'all should have made sure that hole was dug before you started dancing your jig, because the big man is back. You killed my doc. You're happy? Well, here he comes. He's coming back, and he's bringing some people with him too. Like there
Yeah,
is some
I might be
crazy.
busting mine out too. We're gonna talk about it.
There
We're
are
gonna
some
talk about it.
crazy things that you can do now. Now that
Like,
points have gone up the way they have, like I mean, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm working on getting Bellacore and Archeon in the same army, the same damn army.
Madman.
I may have a little chain on his neck where Archeon leads him around like a whipped ass dog. Like, so, I mean, overall, the points were a little goofy. I think Marauders, I know everyone thinks they're so good and everything. And Marauders, they went up pretty significantly. And
sort of. Was it basically you're paying 20 more points for 20? I don't know if it's significant enough to keep
well,
them from being
I
what
don't.
they were. Maybe
They
because
just can't
they're
run
only
them
in
in
a 30
40s
man
anymore.
now.
Yeah, you
But I
can't run
think
them in.
a 30 man is a good size for Marauders. It
Yeah.
gives you the same thing you were paying 320 points for 270 points, and it's going to function the same exact way a lot of the
Hmm.
time. I
Yeah.
think because you
I,
overkill so many things with 40 Marauders, right? Like
yeah.
there's so many things you engage on, and you wind up just running out of things to do damage to with the way they engage off the teleport. That I think that they're still going to be a staple in anything that is inside of the Slaves of Darkness book. Anything that can pair them with a teleport, I think Marauders are still going to be a staple in the army.
Yeah. And Vanguard didn't move. They stayed at 280.
Yeah,
And
super good buy. Nice the empty throne now. Like very good buy.
yeah. And then Warriors going up to 200 for 10. You got a 20-point hike, but
Reverted to
10 of them.
change basically. But now you
Wait,
can
what do
Yeah.
you
get
mean? What do you mean
30.
they got a 20-point hike? They got a 110-point hike. That's what they got.
Well, now you can take 30 of them shits
Okay.
effectively now. So I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, but like even 10 of them with oracular visions and
When you go big,
Oh no,
they innately do it,
they're good,
right?
and GW went there and they looked at the issue that they were seeing with the Chaos armies, and they said, we want you to play Hedonites of Slanesh, not Slaves of Darkness, plus a few Hedonites models. And so
Yeah. Well,
that's yeah.
like our boy Kyle Valdez was like, Marauders needed to be destroyed. I was like, well, the thing that made Marauders go didn't get, neither one of the two things that made Marauders go got destroyed. The Sorcerer Lord went up 5 points, and Archaon went up 30 points.
How many did
So-
Knights go to 10-mans too?
No,
Knights
Knights are five.
are
Chaos
still
Knights are
5
5
mans.
mans.
5.
And they went
Because-
up by like 15 points, I
Well,
think.
both
They're-
of these, the Warriors and Knights, that stagger back ability is going to be very, very vital.
Mhm.
Like if you get a 30-man unit of Warriors and you lose, say, you get down to maybe 7 or 8 Warriors left, right, and you just spike a roll and you bring back 7 or 8 Warriors.
Rally,
That could be
yeah.
substantial,
Mhm.
substantial enough to change a game, I think.
That's going to be huge for
And-
so many armies.
Right. Anything that can go really big, model count like that,
Mhm.
like zombies,
Well,
things like
Slaves
zombies.
looked so good to me that it made me pull out the old Mana
Oh,
Core and
It's got
get
all
the
the
Sorcerer Lord.
keywords. Heroic actions. He's got
Ooh,
monster
yeah,
actions.
he's
Yep.
so good. He can bring a spell to give him +1 damage.
Lot going on with slaves. It's until the FAQs come out, until kind of new book changes come out. It's going to be a little turbulent because of the coalition rules.
Yeah, I'm
in the
just gonna
GHB.
leave it alone for once. Like
Mhm.
usually, I like to bring that blue scribe tech in there and get me the rerolls and the casting. But now my Vanguard are battle line now, so let's go.
Wait, are they straight up battle line?
Well, they are battle line in Host of the Everchosen.
Yeah.
Your entire army. So now my entire army is Slaves of Darkness. So because I used to bring in a blue scribe, and I don't have that in there anymore. So.
Mhm.
So I
Yeah,
think where I'll end up is with a sorcerer on foot and one on a mana core in Archaon, and have double oracular visions and see who can kill Archaon when he's
Yep.
bashing people's heads in.
And I think,
Oh.
and one more before we get stuck on this army for like 15 minutes.
No, you can go ahead.
But I think the game has reduced a lot of the sources of rerolls in general. If you look through a lot of the generic things that gave rerolls that went away, like triumphs and various other ways to reroll hits, wounds, saves. Well, they have all 3 of those things tied to one 115-point character. So I think that in itself is one of the strongest building blocks in the game that you can find right now. So I think that is going to be a pillar on which a lot of competitive lists are built, is that Chaos Sorcerer Lord. That paired with other various things in the book, in the hands of a good general, is going to wreak havoc in this new 3.0 edition, I think. So.
I agree.
All right. We kind of touched on Seduza Sigmar already.
What do you think about Fett, Gavin? What do you think? You're the local
I mean,
Fett guy.
so they hit the flayers again. You're paying almost 200 points for 3 flayers. I think what you're going to see a lot of you're going to see the Terrorgeist builds. I think that's what makes the most sense with the points that I've seen in the rule set that they're going to. It can do a lot of damage if you get it into position to do so. The summoning is really good on the smaller heroes and the mounted ones, but I think it's going to be weak to the same things as before, which maybe pushes it up through the middle of the pack of armies now, because a lot of what it was weak to got nerfed. You can see almost everything that you don't want to play against with Feck is towards the bottom of this list. So those armies maybe rotating out of the meta give them a little more play, and you don't need a ton of play for that army to be really scary in a tournament setting, because it's got that double turn puncher's chance, where a Feck army in the right position, it can double turn and kill almost anything in the game, which will give it some play. I just don't know if there's going to be a lot of people on Feck.
Yeah.
Would be my only caveat.
I do think with the more availability of command points and
It's another good point.
the power of summoning in this edition, because all the points went up. Armies are going to be smaller. That means every unit you summon is that much more effective than it was before. And since
For sure.
they are an army that easily can summon a lot of units onto the board, yeah.
Yep. I think it's
Yeah,
got
how often have you lost
some
effect
sleeper
by
potential.
Mhm.
How often have you lost effect by that Bargolf that got summoned in that you weren't thinking about? You know,
Because I mean, anything the thing that keeps Feck relevant is its force multipliers are some of the best in the game because you have the ability to increase your base attack profiles by 2 to 4 attacks through your entire profile portfolio on every single one of your models, and you have the ability to make that same model fight twice, so it's exponential and how fast the damage multiplies, and that works on anything. So it always gives the army play, especially with double turns, as another exponential modifier on that damage train. So along with the sounding mechanics that James mentioned, I think the army can be very good.
Yeah. The one thing that's going to hurt them is that they can only do Feeding Frenzy once per combat phase.
Yeah, for sure.
oh yeah, because the same command ability can't be repeated, right? Like,
Yep.
Right.
Unless
But it's
And you
probably
use
on
the
the buzzsaw.
particular workaround for Eliatha, but that's some straight shenanigans to get to that route. But we'll get back to that later. Okay. Anything else on Flesh Eaters?
nah.
Okay.
Justin Feck is fairly elite. Yeah, a lot of the time you're playing through your big models. It's very similar to your Iron Jaws in that regard, where you have a little bit of support and big models that you play through. So very similar army structure to what you're playing. So I would say elite. Yeah, for sure.
Gits.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think they're getting the rumor is they're getting a new book, right? Like,
Yeah. I haven't
so-
thought much about their points changes. I just know that I sat there. I'm like, well, my 2 battalions are gone, so I have like points to play with squigs. I'm just, do I want to paint more squigs? The answer is at the moment, no. No, I don't. I do think all the destruction armies, any horde army, all the destruction armies benefit significantly in this edition from the ability that your unit leaders can use command abilities.
Yeah.
That is
Agreed.
huge. That means you can project power better. So you can throw a unit out across the board and be like, well, I know my bravery is shit, but that's okay. I can use Inspiring Presence. There's and the other benefits of being able to buff their hits, and that's one of the huge things for a lot of destruction armies is they can't hit the broadside of a barn. Okay, well now that unit of mountain trolls, whatever the hell they're, rock guts, is within range of their general. Bam, those suckers are hitting on +1 now.
It helps a lot because anything that's 4+ base will be helpful.
So did I read that wrong? Is that +1? Is that an aura that he gets? Or he can
No,
just give it. They can.
no, so they don't have unit leaders in the troll units, so they can't give themselves orders. But if they're wholly within 18 of their general, they get he can use that order on them.
Oh yeah, for the new whatever it is called.
Command abilities, yeah.
Yeah, the new what used to be reroll ones is now a +1, which I really like those. Like Arcan now doesn't need all the buff pieces that we used to have to bring. Now I know I'm backtracking, but any hero that had to have buff pieces around to give themselves +1 on their save doesn't need it anymore. They just give it to themselves, and in a Mystic Shield, an easy spell to get off gives them another one, and then you start nullifying Ren to that point. So.
Well, this makes me happy in that I can go back to my dock and I can play Keltnar and I can finally have the Temple Nest back.
Well, Keltnar is, I think, going to be a good way to play it, especially with Marathi being able to retreat and charge in there. Like, she is going to be a monster with the Shadow Queen. Retreat like
a lot of armies for Doc gravitate more towards a mix or just straight witch elves with Marathi. I think you're going to see a lot of that because of how aggressively the bow snakes specifically are priced. It's very hard to take bow snakes now, I think, and
It was like a
I think you're just going to
40
see more.
40% increase. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very
So,
aggressive. So, I mean, if you're wanting to build 15 bow snakes with Marathi, you're looking at almost 60% of your points, 510 plus 660. So that was 1170, almost close to 1200 points, right?
Yeah, it's nuts. Like I did the math on my list. My list went up by 335 points that I played last weekend.
Yeah.
well, we'll get to them. Yeah,
One
gets.
more thing about Gits that I think that helps them a lot, and a lot. There's a few factions that benefit specifically from the generic command trait that allows you to reroll a spell, because Gits are much better much more functional as an army when their teleport's happening reliably, and that happens more reliably with a reroll, right? It's very simple math there. So I think that the ability to guarantee some of those spells, there's a lot of armies that revolve around key spells like that. Like Slaves of Darkness, for example, has teleports. They have a teleport. Nurgle has Blades of Putrefaction, etc. That those armies being able to reroll those spells will help them a lot at the higher end of competitive play. So.
Okay. Yeah, it's hard to say with Gloomspite because there's a lot there. I do think they're going to get huge buffs, but they're probably also getting a book change anyway. So Maggotkin.
Yeah.
I think Magickin is in that area where it's still got like a almost first edition book,
It is. It is the oldest book in existence.
and it's got a lot of workarounds that
Uh,
a good general is going to be able to, for lack of a better word, take advantage of. And
they got a lot of buffs with the Broken Realms book when it comes to their demon units, but they're just
Yeah.
spread out over so many different books. Blades of Putrefaction actually is not very good for them anymore. And do you know why that is the case?
It's
no,
capped
please
at the
enlighten me.
1+1.
Oh
Right?
yeah,
Yeah. Well, here, so let's say you cast it on a unit of Blight Kings, which one lose their Ren because you can't take
Mhm.
the Stallion anymore, and two, when you have an ability that triggers off of a certain die roll, and you have two of those abilities, you can only pick one.
mm-hmm.
So, okay, do you get D6 hits or do you get mortal wounds?
Hmm.
Yeah. So it's like,
Yeah,
oh,
specifically
okay.
for them, it's definitely a nerf. I think you can still play coalition rules with the army, right? Bring Slaves of
You
Darkness or no?
you can bring them with coalition, but they won't count as your battle line.
Mm.
So that kills my Nurgle army. I'll just sit on it for a while and see what happens. Because if they put up Pestigores, I will buy them. They can be trash, and I will buy them. So I think
Right.
Nurgle is in that position. Like, yeah, cool. Let's just wait for their book to come out. I
And I
really don't
mean,
know.
they need the book. They need a book to give them an identity, because right now it's a fast army that has situational damage, and that doesn't line up with what Nurgle should be, I
And
think,
they
for
just kind of
anyone.
feed off of a combination of rules that haven't been updated in like 3 damn years now, and
Yeah.
a group of people willing to take advantage of that.
He's in the chat. What do you have
Yeah.
to say? Defend yourself. I see your little what is that? Is that an OK symbol? What is that?
No, I think he's
Praying
washing his
hands.
hands.
Yeah. He's rubbing his hands. Some kind of horse shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
We know.
Um,
Where's the no FAQ idolaters? I want to see that list. Bring that to Dallas and just make the TO freaking do a swan dive off the top of the venue. Like, yeah, I'm bringing this. It has no FAQs. It doesn't work.
right. Night Haunts. I have heard that Nighthawk players are happy with the changes and that there wasn't very much of them, so that's cool.
I summon the quiet one to give his opinion on Night Honey plays a lot.
Hmm.
Talk.
Yeah, what's
Talk.
going on? What's going on, Evan?
Is he there? Oh. Yeah. Talk. You have an opinion?
It's good. Yeah, I think James summed it up pretty well. It actually it didn't change really at all. Like I think people who played Chain Ras are pretty pissed, but I thought they were garbage tier anyways. Like they were kind of the crutch of the army. So it's good that they like you're forced to kind of play the other stuff. I think Hex Race going up was like perfectly acceptable. Because you know the Emerald Host subfaction just does everything you need anyways. You were just kind of doubling
Right.
up with some of the battalions, and they didn't change the Black Coach at all. The heroes, I think the Dreadblade hero went up 10 points, but then I can't remember what hero went down 5 points. So out of like the 5 heroes I was running, only 2 changed, and it was only for a 5 point difference overall, which was like hilarious. So it was one of those armies where once you took the battalion out, that was like it made up for the points difference, and I thought that was perfect.
Right.
I wish more armies were like that. So yeah,
Doc, you wish Doc was like
I
that?
did, Doc.
I wish Slanesh was even remotely like that.
Oh,
Oh.
Jesus. Yeah,
Oh,
we'll talk about that.
Yeah,
we'll talk
we'll put
about
them for
that
last.
meme. That's a meme. That's what that is. That's GW just memeing. But what's next? Fire Slayers, huh? I think I can talk with a pretty informed opinion on Fire Slayers.
Jeez,
I think
Russian
Fire
argument.
Slayers have kind of taken a okay. I think the Fire Slayers have kind of taken a beating in the new edition because they went from a max of 20 where they were getting a discount to now they can only be at 15s, and they made the points go up, and it's almost like a double whammy on the points because they're not getting to the discount anymore, and they made the points go up. So you wind up with much less points efficiency, which a lot of armies did. That was kind of the standard, but they seem to have felt it a little more. Lords of the Lodge going away is really going to hurt the Hearthguard builds as well. You will see that army still have some success because it's so tanky. It's just tanky, and it still has to fight first on one unit, so it will still have some play. I think what you will see if you see Hearthguard is one unit of 15 with a mix of other things, which is probably a more healthy environment for the army to be in general anyways, like as far as for a look and then as a play style. So I think that's kind of where they are as far as an army with Fire Slayers. The Magma Dross kind of came out ahead of where they were. If I was going to like put them somewhere, I think you're going to see some pretty good Magma Dross centric builds with lots of Ruined Suns following each other around and making each other better. I think that there's a lot of play for those, especially if the game trends towards Horde. Magma Dross are really good against Horde because they do a lot of damage based on unit size, which will help those builds out a lot. Yeah, they're still okay. Like Fire Slayers are okay. I don't think that. I think they're maybe towards the very middle of the fat middle, maybe a little on the low end of the fat middle. They spent so much time right on the cusp of S or S that I think it's okay for them to be there for a little while, especially if they intend to lump them into a dwarf book, which is where a lot of people are thinking about. And I think that that would be a better place for KO and them. That would wind up being a better, just a healthier army because a lot of the problems that Fire Slayers and KO have is that they're so hyper focused on one play style. So what that winds up producing is when you hyper focus a book on one play style is that play style is too good or too bad. It's either too good and blows things off the board and plays in a way that makes it like hyper S, or it's so bad that people don't play it. There's never a balance because there's no balance in the book. There's 3 or 4 different ways to build the army, and everyone plays those 3 or 4 ways, and it either is too good or too bad. So I think that if you lump dwarves into one book, like Warclan style, with some other newer, like dispossessed themed stuff, I think that would create a functioning book instead of a bunch of broken ones like there has been in the past, and I think will continue to be in this edition.
Well, hey, I think you just
I talked-
summed up Idenough Deepkin also.
Yeah, they're right below that. Yeah, Deepkin kind of took a beating too. No more attack spams. Everything went up in points. I think someone's gonna figure out a way to play it well because there's good tools. And
Time Marty. I
yeah,
don't know.
there's enough good rules in there for someone to play well with a Deepkin army. But it's definitely significantly less effective than it was in 2.0. I think. There's just they lost a lot right off the top. And then war clans, huh? Will Kragnos get keywords? Yes or no? What do y'all think?
No,
No,
No, I don't think
No.
so.
but I want him to.
no. Kragnos,
I'll say
Kragnos is
yes.
gonna be- Kragnos is going to be the
Rogue Idol 2.0
No.
incoming.
no Rogue Isles for you. They know what they did.
Just do it. Just do it. Just do it. Just do it.
No.
That's what I say. That's
he's
my
gonna be
vote.
he's going to be
Just
the
see what
complete
happens.
destruction.
Archaon's
What's the
got
worst that could
his.
happen?
Chaos has theirs. Give
What's the worst that
give-
could happen?
give
Just let him
destruction.
move- Let him move 30 inches and move twice and fight in the hero phase and +1 to all his damage. Let him do it and see what happens. That's my vote.
Do you need to see it happen to know what's going to happen?
Yeah, I need to see it. I
He's
wanna
just
see
a destruction Archaon. Oh, good.
I
No,
wanna
he's
see
not.
it.
No, he's not.
He will be.
That's what
Brian's
you
like, oh,
guys say.
you better not compare him to my boy.
That's
Oh,
what
you're
you
gonna get
guys
him
say to
going.
justify it.
You're gonna get him going. That's what's gonna have to come in and save the day. Archeon's gonna have to come in and save everybody from the fucking Kragnos rampage.
I'm good with that.
He does every time.
Yeah, and put that big
Yeah,
bastard down.
you know, he's like,
Come
all right.
on, dude.
Make
No,
those
I'm gonna
36
go.
mortal wound. Feel no pains.
Yeah,
gonna-
you're gonna have trouble charging him when he's behind
Yeah.
shit.
He
flies.
There's shackles following him around.
You
No
can't.
matter if he flies. He can't
If you fly, you can't make the fucking room for him to land. It's like, you still have to go into what's in front of him. But no, I mean,
You're gonna get slayed.
it does actually depend a lot on what they do with Kragnos, I think, as to where the power of this faction is. I think they're still solid because they have so many damage and movement options that they'll always be pretty good in a informed general's hands because they have the ability to dictate damage and have enough damage to dictate a game if played well and with the right matchup. So I think the army's kind of going to stay around where it is.
If
I
you
was
look
going
at
to
them,
guess.
They're getting a new book
lose
supposedly too.
a lot of their damage, where a lot of armies with these points changes are losing a lot of their damage. So much of their damage is tied to like one model, and they're still going to bring it. Like I don't think they lost that much damage where other armies lost a lot of their output. So it'll be a lot harder to deal with them versus them just coming in and blowing you up. Like a well-placed Maw Crusher will end a game. Like it's just over.
It is an interesting average right in the center that they did increase everything across the board by about 8%. It's an interesting number, and then how some are just such outliers to that, but we'll get to those.
You want to go over KO, Gavin?
Yeah,
They
sure.
didn't touch frigates.
Well, they did. They reverted them back to 250. So, what I think they did with KO, I don't know if it's going to be enough to keep them from being the oppressive monster that they are. But they changed triumphs, and that's a big interaction because it takes away their ability to reroll hits, wounds, or saves, which is going to hit a lot of their upfront firepower, I think, which is a lot of what's causing the problems in the game right now. Is they can guarantee so much of their damage turn one. So with that being hit a little bit, you still have your flare pistol, so you're still going to be able to guarantee a lot of damage against one unit, but you won't be able to kill multiple units like you can now. Vortex is still there right now, depending on FAQs. I don't think they need Vortex. What I think the KO needs is what they got with no Vortex. I think that would put them in a place to where they would require very good piloting and would still have matchups that aren't very good for them. If you were really going to give me full reign to change the army, I think that what you should do is flip their shooting profiles with their melee profiles. And that would make them participate in the combat phase, which is where a lot of Age of Sigmar, the meat and potatoes of Age of Sigmar is still in the combat phase, and that would make them play there instead of outside of this realm where every other army like kind of plays. Like KO, the problem that KO has is that they play in the shooting phase, which is completely separate and foreign to 85-90% of the other armies in the game, and so they can circumvent all of these other mechanics that make other armies work, give them toughness situationally, and then give them toughness with screens. They play around all of that. So a good general can just target what makes your army work and take it piece by piece away from you with no answer. And that's a lot of what makes KO very difficult to play against, especially when someone knows what your army does. But I don't know if it solves all those problems. I think that the triumphs more than anything will help mitigate some of what KO does, I think.
What is that Kevin has written down there?
That as of right now, you have to have a wizard to bring an endless spell, but that's with an incomplete rule set, so I'm not sure how that's going to work, because the artifact is written into the book with very obvious intention of letting you use an endless spell with an artifact. I don't think that they would just leave that as written. I think it's ambiguous enough to warrant an FAQ, I think is where that rule is. So
Also not difficult to make someone a wizard, so
right.
That's a moot point there. Yeah, so we can probably just skip over Stormcast Eternals because they're about to get a new book.
Which I am excited about that new stuff, though. I am going to have Androsta running around.
I mean, yeah, Yggdrasil's cool. I don't like. She's a cool enough model. I really don't care about her. I think those new battle line ones with the spears are pretty.
Oh yeah.
The armor is nicely articulated for sure. It's very cool look.
And it's very nice that they're
hot take if they keep their ability to hide units off the board in Deep Strike, I think that Stormcast are going to be very strong. That's my hot take.
We already know
very ambiguous.
We already know they can do that because those
Annihilators. I think they're going to be good then.
Yeah.
I like how those new models, what some people are like, oh, those are going to be Primaris Stormcast, the same height as the other Stormcast, which is great. They're just lankier. So yeah, Stormcast will do their thing. Maw Tribes.
But they're ready for a new book too, right? In that
I think we all play Maw Tribes. I've been talking a lot. If you want to run it through, Mr. West.
So when it comes to the Foot Ogres, I haven't sat and done the breakdown of it. There's a lot of people crying doom and gloom on it, but again,
I didn't see that.
It's an army where a lot of the command abilities really benefit them. Their points went up, but they went up across the board on their stuff. And the Foot Ogres unit sizes, I think, is where people really got into the issue with it, and the fact that you can only reinforce so much. And that's what caused the consternation. But there's a lot of this. I mean, with the shorter, personally, I don't think the shorter board sizes means very much to them because you're still 18 to 24 inches away from the opponent, so whatever.
Right.
But they still count as 2 models for objectives. Only 5 wound models get the other thing there. So with less models on the board, they count for more. And so that's still good. I don't know why you would spend your reinforcement points on lead belchers if you're playing just foot ogres. You should just throw it all into iron guts and be like, yes, I iron gut time. The lack of battalions really didn't hurt them that badly. But I do think Blood Gullet, that the article they just put out, is actually pretty good at highlighting where Blood Gullet is really, really good for these guys. So again, you don't have to have your heroes glued to the hip to them to make them not run away anymore with their shitty bravery.
Right.
So overall, I think foot ogres are going to be okay, but where it really shines is BCR because all the buffs to monsters, their points did not radically change. They went up, but not too much out of line with the average.
Slightly, about enough to backfill the Eurobad, I think. That's about how many points they went up.
And the all things considered, the new battalions actually benefit them a lot more than their Eurobad did, or even the Jarlbad, because you can also toss your Frostlord into a damn battalion for once. So you can easily get and that new battalion for the Gur, where you have three monsters in it, and at the start of the game they get to move an extra D6 inches, which is, or before the game starts, they move 6 inches. That is solid. Now you're not going to be getting, that's 3 separate drops because that battalion doesn't give you unified. But okay, whatever. Your BCR, you probably weren't choosing who goes first anyway.
Yeah, well, it's an offensive tool and a defensive tool, right? Like you can use it both ways. Very, very good. A lot of the priest changes helped them out a lot because their priests were a little limited, and a lot of the generic prayers are higher in terms of casting value, but those Thunder Tusks bonuses stack on those too. So you're looking at 2, 3 plus on a lot of the generic prayers also, and I think as a whole, like you said, there's less damage in the game, so a monster with a 5+ feel no pain with a lot of sources of healing is going to stay in the game longer. Lots of little nuance that's going to help them out a lot. Stacking more mortal wounds on the charge. You're going to see BCR do pretty well. I don't know if they're going to outperform Suns, and it's such a linear comparison between those two armies that I think it's just going to be which one is better a lot of the time. But they're going to have a lot of play, for sure, I think.
I mean, there's something to be said for a 2+ armor save Frostlord face.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah. Do you have anything to add, Brian?
No, I mean, I like the unit size changes for foot ogres because that's the side of it that I'm interested in. I mean, I've been messing with them and messing with them and messing with them, and I would like to play a destruction army, and that's the one that I'm interested in. But as far as, like you said, the complaining about the unit size, I kind of like what they did with them. Like 6-man units of Gluttons as a base, I like that. I mean, that means you don't have to spend those reinforcement points on your Gluttons. You can just, like you said, dump them all into Iron Guts and be done.
Yeah, got the big range too on them too, right? Like 3-inch range on Iron Guts helps.
Or 2-inch, I think.
2-inch, but
the fancy stuff, and that's its own.
If you have BCR, you don't need. Doesn't matter for coherency. Just play one model army. Like.
All right. I think that'll hurt them a little bit, but I think it'll be fine.
I'll keep moving along here.
I've got the hottest of hot takes. I think Beast of Chaos got a huge stealth buff. And it's the same thing I talked about before, the command abilities. Because here's the problem with Beast of Chaos. They are one of the fastest armies in the game. They can get a unit of Bestigors across that damn board turn 1, and there's not a damn thing you can do about it. And then they're completely out of range of any buffs. And then they just die and they run the battle shock. Well, that's not a problem anymore. Yeah, now you can just be like, oh, damn, you killed 10 of my Bestigors. Well, okay, Inspiring Presence. Even though that Beast Lord is way, like, 30 inches away, like, hey, guys, wait up.
Yeah.
So I think
What
that's
is
where they.
do they have totems in that army? It seems like a totem army. I don't remember.
No, they don't.
No totems in a basically Native American themed army. No totems.
Wow.
Unfortunate.
Unless they, well, yeah. Yeah, no, I don't know. No, they don't. As far as I know, they don't have any totems.
Sad.
So let's see. Yeah, they're due for new book too for multiple reasons, but I do think they got a huge buff because of that. Sylvaneth. I think Sylvaneth got a buff also.
Yeah.
And I say that because one, Alariel I think got a quite the buff for a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
Kurnoth hunters being able access to so many of these command abilities, and then just being able to do it for wherever on the board as long as the hero is alive is and they even have their own unit champion. They can pass it off to other units, so it's really good. The unit size thing is going to be a problem, but or not the coherency will be a problem. But again, all those command abilities are really good. They got a lot killier. And
They
the
fixed
trees, the fact that they can shoot through their own damn trees, I love it.
Oh yeah.
I love it
so much. The time of the Sylvaneth is upon us. Alariel is a monster now. Like, I don't care what all these people say that Alariel's crap. Like, I don't care what you say. You're wrong. You're wrong. You can't kill her. If you don't kill her in a single turn, she just heals all the way back up. Like, you're wrong. Insane Alariel at 740 was expensive when she puts Tree Lord Ancient right on the board if she wants to. You're wrong.
Wrong.
Yeah,
Alariel is a monster.
I think, especially with that new hero, they're in a really good place.
And the way she's written, she doesn't even have to be in her own army to know her spell lore right now. I imagine that it may get FAQ'd, but you can run her in anywhere that she can be an ally or put into an army. She can't be an ally at 740, but any army that she can be included in and still know the Sylvaneth spell lore as written right now is awesome.
Sigmar.
Yep, Cities of Sigmar.
Hey, Living City.
Yeah, that is real nice. So I think Sylvaneth are doing good. All right, Brian, you wanna talk quick?
We'll go quick on them. I
Take it
think
away.
they've taken a big hit. I think their prayers, like, they lived and died by prayers, and now they're all kind of junk. Like, let's face it, they lived and died by having priests who could cast multiple prayers and do multiple things. Blood Warriors got a little bump, I think, going up to 10 automatically, where they always should have been. But I think Blood Warriors are cool. You can't, now they went up to 10 models. You can still run a big 30 block of them if you want to. And I think that's how you run them. I think you run 30 Blood Warriors screaming across the board and
rally them and do etc. Right?
Yeah, but I think the army has taken a big hit. Like, the prayers hit them harder than most. They lived and died with being able to control the magic phase and never cast a spell. Like, they dominated the hero phase against a lot of players, and now they don't. And then their prayers are like the invocations now. They already had a balancing thing on them that at the top of the battle round we had to roll a 5+ to see if they stayed. Now at 48 inches, you can just pray them off. Like, we don't even have to worry about it anymore. Like, even if I make the 5-up reroll, the 5-up roll to keep them on the board, you just pray them off on a 3+. So the chances of me keeping my stuff on the board are much, much harder. I can't do Blood Boil plus my other prayers anymore. And I know it sounds like wine, but I think Blades of Corn didn't need to take a hit like that. Like, they were already, like, what do we have, 72 players, and the only Blades of Corn there was Tyrants of Blood, and that list actually stayed basically the same. You lose the battalions, obviously, and you're not Tyrants of Blood anymore. Bloodthirster stayed in a good place, which they may actually be playable now, because they're a big monster with a good profile and or a shitty profile, but at the points they're at, it's a pretty decent profile. Like Bellacore, I mean not Bellacore, Scarbrand has a pretty good points cost now, with a lot less of the things that were easily taking him off the board. There'll be a lot less of it around. So I believe if you played Mortal Corn, you took a big hit. If you played Demon Side of Corn, I think you'll be happy with where the points ended up. But Mortal Corn took a beating.
Agreed. What's next? Lumineth. Talk about it.
Okay.
Talk about it. I want to know.
So get wrecked, Techless. You didn't belong anyway, and now you really don't belong. So cool. Let's see. It's quite the hit. A lot of their units got some significant points increases. Plus 10 points on the Sentinels, plus 10 points on the Dawn Riders. It doesn't seem like much, but you have to factor in the fact that it's plus 25 points per unit of, or per 10 Wardens. And that's a big deal because they're your main battle line and they make your other stuff battle line. And that's
Agreed,
quite big,
yeah.
and that kind of limits your forces. Other things got pretty big bumps, just kind of put it in line with it. A lot of the heroes, Caligrave for some reason got a big bump, but the Cat Halars did not. They got like a 5-point increase, whoop-de-doo.
And they were the number one prop in that army. Like so good.
Yeah, the Twin Stones went up 20 points as they should have. Hopefully they get an FAQ that isn't stupid and actually is reasonable. And so in general, it took the list I took to ACO, and it said, okay, well, your battalions are gone, but your list now is 2,090 points. It's like, okay. Okay, I remove the Twin Stones. Okay. I have to remove 2 units of anything and replace it with 2 other units. That's the only way this works, because I must have the twins. There's a theme to this army, and I must stick to it. I'm like, okay, what the fuck do I do with that? I don't want to drop any Wardens. Oh, wait. I can drop 2 units of Sentinels and put in 2 Star Shards. Bam, 1990. I did it. That's still a 2-drop army.
There you go.
Yep. So I think Lumineth did deserve some of its points increases. Probably more so than some of the other ones. And I'm glad people are going to get out of their techless hole. So GW already sold techless models to people. Now it doesn't care. Go buy cows.
Well, it was already a fine balance because the army, as much as we pretend like everything was undercosted, the thing that was undercosted was the Catalar and all that they could do in techless. I think the rest of the army was like if you were bringing techless before, even before his points hike, you weren't getting much of an army after that. So I think they did okay. I mean, I can't complain about your Cathalar and in the same sentence, like look over at my Sorcerer Lord and love him to death.
I think it's going to function in the same space where if you see Lumineth played very cleanly is going to be a very tough out, whereas it goes off a cliff if you start to not play the army well. Like you'll see it like turn into something that loses to almost everything if you just aren't playing the army well.
It is certainly an army that a beginner is going to have a really hard time playing. So, and that's always been how Lumineth is.
The entire game has turned into something that beginners are going to struggle with right now.
We'll see. They'll figure out a way to make it easy enough.
Play zombies. Yeah.
Skaven. I don't know what to say about Skaven. I don't understand.
I haven't really looked hard enough to know.
I think they're in a better place than they're getting. Than people are thinking about them right now. I mean, I don't want to like tell everybody that you can stick a hider unit of flamers in a big block of damn clan rats anymore, but somebody's going to do it, and it's going to be nasty. You're going to hit a unit of clan rats and lose half your army on your turn.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy.
I
And
think
I think Steven's got some play for sure.
yeah, the reinforcement points things hit them very odd because it's hard to hoard with them anymore. Also, this is very, very clearly obvious that GW has put this down, and they've said, "We know some of you play Clan Eshin and Clan Molder, but you need to stop that."
Only play Scryer.
Only Skyer and Verminous. That's all you get.
Yeah.
No
So
good.
yeah, that's Skaven. Seraphon.
I think they're still in a good place, to be
Yeah.
honest.
I think they got hit pretty substantially, but I think that the army, the book is so good from the top down that I think it'll survive and be just fine. You'll still see Seraphon winning at a healthy rate. That's what I
Did you see
think.
the points on the Scarvet on Carnosaur? It is a legit monster now. At
But
those
one of their big weaknesses is that their battalions weren't structured as competitively as a lot of the like hyper competitive things were. Like you saw a lot of Seraphon hover around 7, 8 drops or more, and now you take that mechanic out of the game. You're going to have the ability to be in a battle regiment if you want, turn order, and then if you don't, like there's going to be a lot of armies that aren't. And I think the Seraphon's gonna play better in that environment than it did in things that were lower dropped and designed to kill Seraphon, right? Like KO, low drop designed to kill Seraphon, Change Host, very similar, designed to take away things on turn 1 from Seraphon, etc. There's a lot of armies that were lower drop than Seraphon and designed to kill Seraphon because it was such a fixture in the game state for such a long time. So I think they'll be fine.
Yeah. Now we get to the fun ones.
Heat Knights. Hilarious.
When Age of Sigmar was coming out, somebody sat there and said, "Listen, no, we can't have Slaanesh in the game because we don't want to alienate certain peoples." And then as the game went forward, people said, "Hey, we want Slaanesh. We want Slaanesh back." And they're like, "Well, we're GW. We like money. We're gonna make some new Slaanesh stuff and put this book out." But that one guy, he was sitting there and he's like, "You pieces of shit! I know what I'm gonna do." And he slowly made his way up, and he stomached it. He stomached it when that book came out and they started wrecking everyone's face. He said, "Don't worry, I've got this 2 years down the road." First, he manages to get that FAQ out. That kind of nerfed him a bit. Okay, whatever. And then he gets his on the design committee for this book, and those points come out, and everyone's like, "What is this? Is this a joke?" And he's sitting there laughing in the corner, just like, "Yeah, it's good. No one will play Slaanesh now." But then people played Slaanesh. He said, "Oh, don't worry, the double whammy's coming," and this is the double whammy.
Yeah, I don't know what to say. Like, I think that Evan was saying that he's building lists with like 60 and 70 wounds.
Shit, that's on a good day, motherfucker.
Yeah, I mean,
the big thing
Slaanesh
is
just summon it on, bro.
60 wounds and Soul Blight. Averages like 200. Averages 3 times the same army size. 3 times the army size of Slaanesh. I don't understand what happened.
Yeah, I don't like the points were already. Yeah, the points were already like overcosted, and even when I got them, everyone's like, "Well, don't worry, like they're just 3.0 before everyone else. They're like the test dummies." And then we see this shit, and I mean, there were only 2 units in the entire fucking roster that went up 95 points, and Schlaxy was one of them, and then Keepers went up 80 goddamn points on top of that, and then everything else, even the stuff you didn't run, went up. Demonettes went up by 30 points. Your cheapest battle line is 135 for fucking 5 models.
Yeah.
I like when you compare to Slaves to Darkness and like how they like relatively priced them the way that I didn't expect it, where like Chaos Knights are only 180 now, and you
Let me see what.
or
175.
170,
How did they
175.
price?
and then
How
well
did
either
they
way,
price
like they're
fucking
they're
Siege?
kind of they're pretty good price. And then you look at the cavalry in Slanesh, and they were already ridiculously overcosted, and now they're 230 points for 5. Ugh, it's just it pains me to see that shit. Like,
Just summon more stuff, bro. Just summon more
yeah,
stuff.
yeah. Let me.
Fun,
Like I
bro.
said,
Just summon.
it's a good thing that you're a psychopath and you have like 10 armies like us, like
Yeah.
everyone in this chat right now. I think we have like
9
40
armies now. I don't have 10 anymore.
armies.
I
The
know, I
points
lost
updates
armies.
made one of them for free.
One of- It's
Oh
fine.
goodness.
The rules update's completely
Where's
invalidated.
where's Zinch?
God,
Well, I'm looking for Zinch.
The-
Why is it say 27% next to them?
I don't know.
What went up that much?
Flamers.
Flamers
Oh.
went up a lot. I think the chickens went up a good bit.
Not a whole lot.
Whores. That's not enough.
The
What do you mean?
the acolytes went up by 20 points. Really, it was just the
Oh, wow.
flamers and the exalted flamers. Exalted flamers went up 40 points, I believe.
It's still only 215 for whores. It's not enough. There's
Oh, they
some-
went
some
down 5 points.
Asshole with 30 fucking horrors in one unit. I know that there's someone out there.
It's me.
We'll make
Oh.
you play. We'll make you play
It-
the
it-
zombies
it's me.
players. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Well, if you
So,
show up
I
on
would say
Thursday, Saturday,
demons.
You're playing against whoever brought 120 zombies.
Yeah. For as far as like Slanesh, like demons unplayable. Like I can't even like actually put a list together that makes any sense at all. You're just
Wow.
like the only time you're gonna see a demon on the board is when you summon one, if you summon one. Mortals is barely playable, and now that you Slaves to Darkness, you can't even run them as battle line. You're paying at minimum 140 points for the cheapest battle line option, and everything is overcosted already. So it's really it's kind of just pathetic how points wise they are completely in a different realm. I mean, I know they're not the one that got hit the hardest as far as points, but they were already the worst, and now they're like, I mean, I think for this is the first F tier list that I would ever put in our tier list. Like I know that sounds a little crazy, but like if I had to put one in there, like Slanesh would easily be my first pick. My broken, no longer playable Legion of Asgore could kick this ass. So
Oh.
that's it. I'm done. I'm
I
done.
mean, yeah, I get it, dude.
Wow, that's
I get it.
yeah.
I get it.
I got 4 people that gave me their condolences when they saw the points increase. I didn't even say anything, and they already messaged me about it.
You bought that garbage.
Uh,
You knew it was about. You knew.
I won that garbage, and then I bought it.
The models are good though.
Beautiful models.
Yeah, beautiful army. All 3 of them. Okay.
One. Oh,
others?
I'll end it on a good note. I went from having only like 3,000 points of Slanesh to like 4,500 points of Slanesh without even having to buy another model.
Hey, for the mega battle.
Easy.
So yeah, I'm ready for the mega battle. I'm good.
You can fit your your mega battle army in like one little star collecting box tray.
Just a handful. I don't even need to bring a tray. Just carry it all in by myself.
Just put like 7 models in your pocket.
Yeah.
Like I'm here with my Slanesh.
Okay.
Hmm.
Do we even need to run over Doc? We kind of did
Doc.
already.
Yeah, they've
little
been
bit.
competing. Like there's still going to be ways to play them, but the way that my list is, I'll never play Doc again until points come down because I don't want to buy all the bullshit.
Yeah, it's a heavy-handed response to the army becoming very popular because of the way Marathi works. I think there's argument that the army needed to be readjusted some, but I think that you can just look at ACO and look at the placings for Doc and see out of like the 11 armies or so there, none of them went 5-0. and there was only one 4-1, I think, maybe
Yeah.
two.
No, it was just one. I know it was two. It was James and that girl, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
she snuck in two. So out of 11 armies, you had two armies go 4-1, and then a big split of 3-2, and then some 2-3. And I think that is a healthy split. If you see 11 armies or 11 of the same army at a tournament like a GT, and you see a couple that are outliers at 4-1, and you see a big fat middle of 3-2, and then a few more at lower than that, I think that's the split you're looking for on army balance. I just think that Doc was evaluated by a lot of people. You got a negative game experience when Doc got all of its buffs off and got a double turn and killed all your entire army, and I think that was what people evaluated Doc as through that
Yeah.
lens. It's the same
Yeah,
thing
but
that
it was
Feck. That,
one not getting the double turn away from losing its whole army. You know.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's very similar to Feck. Feck had the same problem where Feck was looked at through that lens, but it's such a volatile like spectrum of what can actually happen because there's so many buffs. It's very buff dependent, and those buffs fail. So I think that it was probably very harshly nerfed, just like Feck was. I'm not sure that they know how to balance that kind of an army in the game. I think that they're probably just better off not writing those rules if they can't figure out how to balance them properly, because it's a negative experience for Doc players that got into that army, fell in love with the aesthetic, and then had their army, you know, adjusted at a downward trend for 5-6 times in the span of 3 months. It's very negative, I think, for a lot of the people who got into that army because they like a lot of the gameplay aspects and also the aesthetic of the army, and for the
Yeah.
army to be nerfed that many times in that short of a span is probably heavy-handed.
Slanesh.
But yeah, Slanesh is worse. Like that's where Doc. That's where Doc is that they didn't get nerfed so hard that they're out of the game, but yeah, they're in that space.
I mean,
Alright.
if you played like I do and only own the snakes and the buff pieces that go around them, your army is out of the game. You did get nerfed out of the game. Like it's just you can't play predominantly snakes anymore. I mean, you can, but it's not the still. You're going to be hovering at like 78 wounds if you play only snakes, and 78 wounds that are made out of paper.
All right. Well, we went through the whole list, and man, there are a shit ton of armies in this game now.
Yeah, that's what I got. I was like, they're still going.
Good lord, there's so many armies in this game now. I didn't even think about it. You're like, holy hell.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good. I just hope that there's variety in 3.0. That's what I'm hoping for, and I think that'll still be the case because 2.0 had a lot of variety, and that was what I liked. One of the things I liked about 2.0 a lot is that every army in some capacity felt like it had something unique that was worth exploring, and I hope that 3.0 echoes a lot of those same characteristics.
Well, cool. I don't know. I mean, it's late. We've said a lot.
Yeah, we've been going a long time. I think we can wrap very abruptly. Thanks for everybody who stuck it out through the whole stream and listened to us gloat and spew knowledge or whatever you want to use, whatever word you want to use for what we were doing for the past 3 hours. I guess it was knowledge.
Spewing
but,
opinions.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one, uninformed, the good stuff. But yeah, thanks for everybody that came out and watched us.
Did Evan end this thing yet, or what?
No, I don't think so.
Well, if you're still here, it looks like Evan walked away from the computer.
I guess he did. So we're just still here.
The good stuff. We'll just go until the lights turn off, dude.
Oh God, Harambe forever.
This
Yeah,
thing is
true.
coming to you.
True. What are y'all guys playing in the chat? Tell us.
Yeah.
I want to
What
know.
are you guys looking at?
I gotta.
Kevin, yeah, Kevin's just gonna shelve the dock that he bought.
Rip.
Sorry.
Eh,
Oh, I feel so
told you,
bad
you know,
for Chris. He just bought that army and he can't use half of it now.
Yeah, yep.
well,
Not
Kevin, I
good.
told you to chill out on the dock. Don't dive headfirst into it, and you didn't listen.
You know.
See, the reason I didn't make that corn army clearly is because I felt it on the wind, and I said, you know what? No, I'm going to slow down and wait until 3.0 comes out, and that's because I instinctually knew that this was going to happen.
Mortals took a beat down, like beat down. It's bad.
Yeah.
But demons can play now. I mean,
If you
because
play,
both those are
if you
so
play
cheap.
zombies, if you play 200 zombies, I'll humiliate you.
How do you play
I
200
will.
zombies?
It's easy. It's like 100 points.
No, I mean like
115 times 10, right? So
no,
11.
you can't do that though.
It's 115 times 20.
At most you get 80 zombies. No, not 80.
What is that?
No, I guess you can get 160. Yeah, huh? Well, you get 40. No. Yeah, reinforce it once.
Yeah, you can get 60 in a unit, yeah.
Yeah,
Right?
but that's 2 reinforcements. So you have 120, I guess.
I'm not saying
big
all.
hits there.
I'm saying cumulative
Yeah.
as a whole, you can play 200 zombies. And then
I mean,
you
you
take
have a shit ton of
units of
20-man units,
you,
yeah.
you put them in the grave. Like, well, you have 200 zombies and you still have like 890 more points of army, right? Or 50 points of army. Like, you still have like a functioning army outside of 200 zombies. That's how undercosted that army is. Like, there's not a lot of armies that are going to be able to deal with the 2 grave sites close to the deployment zone spewing 120 zombies turn 1, as the rules were. Like, there's only so many armies that can get that out of their face. And I don't know. I don't want to play against that. If you play against that, I'm going to make fun of you. I'll follow you around your tables. I'll make fun of you the whole time, and I'll make your experience bad. That's what I'm doing to everyone else.
Okay, don't worry. I got an answer for this. It's going to be the same thing I did at Adepticon. I will just kill it with Varangard.
They'll do it. Like that's
There
one
you go.
unit
do
that
it.
can do it.
Yeah, I'll just charge in with Varangard. And just
don't think they get a unit champion, right?
No,
So
they
they can't.
don't.
At least they can't do that. That's nice.
Yeah.
Ugh.
I mean, if they have a vampire round, but that's also the very interesting thing about Inspiring Presence is you have to be fully within now. Wholly within 18 of a general, totem, or a hero to get it, or have a unit champion. So units that don't have champions, either because they got sniped out or they just don't have them, they're no command stuff for you.
Well, that's kind of like the existence of zombies is kind of my reasoning on wanting to keep my Vanguard in the list because 3 of them in Host of the Everchosen will still rip and tear through an army. Like if you don't have the ability,
Also, the other problem with the zombies, they've got good killing power too.
Mhm.
They have mortal wounds, and they've got abilities to multiply their attacks and make them pile in and fight twice, and then pile in 6 inches. Like, I don't understand how they value zombies at 20 for 115, and then value other things the way they have.
Because they're normal.
I don't think they understand either. Like, they don't understand either. Like, it's obvious answer. They want you to buy zombies so they can make them a lot of points. But I just think it's an extreme outlier, in my opinion, right now to the game state. But we'll see. We'll see if anybody's going to go through the trouble of getting that army. And 40K, no doubt. But Age of Sigmar, maybe not. We'll see.
Hey man, if they keep the wither stave, you can just look at zombies and be like, yeah, bro, mortal wounds, huh?
Yeah,
There you
that's
go.
why all these people talking about killing Archaon with zombies. I'm like, get ready to re-roll them buckets of sixes. I hope you bring 2 buckets. I ain't worried about that shit.
What
I
I'm
told you, Dylan, you on here? We'll play for pinks, dog. You ain't killing my Archaon with zombies. I
Yeah, well, you
promise
ain't
you.
man,
gotta kill him. You just gotta hold him there, give him a hug.
I'm telling you, if Magakin is going to be the first book after, I guess, War Clans. So if Cruel Boys don't get their own book, it'll probably just be a reprint of War Clans. Man, Magakin, they're going to have to feel in my bones that they are going to take Rotbringers and give them a Feel No Pain as an allegiance ability. So that
Let's
you
make
can
him
look.
tough.
Yeah, you can look at the
Whatever should be
Harbinger and you
tough.
just be like, great, you don't have to be babysit by a Harbinger now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. A lot of their shit's still on that old within
Yes.
shit too. Like
Yes,
none
it
of it's
is.
wholly within. It's very.
That's the particular thing that I'm talking about. Some of our friends taking advantage of.
Yeah, he knows the one. I mean, that guy, that particular individual, enjoys taking advantage of rules. We know this.
Where did Evan go?
He doesn't. He went to sleep, dude. He he went Super Saiyan about
Maybe
fucking about Slanesh, and he's
And
like,
that was
okay,
all
I'm
we
fucking
had.
done, and he walked away from his computer. He's like, I'm
And
done.
we're gonna have a 24-hour stream here because we can't get Evan back on to turn this shit off.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, is he
Okay.
back? Was it him? Yeah.
It was me.
No.
I'm back.
Hey.
yes, Zach.
Hey, well,
we're jealous.
we,
I
we,
want him
we,
within aura.
we wrapped up like you're jealous of me, dog. Get out of here with your jealousy. So we wrapped up like
Zach
15
said
minutes
that.
ago.
Oh
I
shit.
know that's what I'm saying. He's jealous of me.
I walk away
What's
and
up,
I'm
my
like,
dude?
I was just
What's
sitting
up,
here
man?
watching you guys keep talking. I was like, man, it's
Jealous.
2.5 hours. We're gonna keep
What
going.
do I clip? But no, dude, we can cut the stream.
Okay. All right.
And like, yeah. But thanks, guys.
I appreciate everybody.
See y'all. Stay safe. Go out and order a bunch of Dominion boxes tomorrow.